All right. So, welcome to the first week of the Brand Strategy Bootcamp with me, Melinda Livesey, and all of you wonderful people that have joined me. So, first off, we're going to be talking about how to facilitate a brand strategy workshop. So, we're going to dive in today to talk about that. So, I'll be sharing my screen, and let me start off on the first slide. So, I'm going to open this up really quick. So, I'm going to be going through this deck as well as my template. So you're going to see a lot of the behind the scenes of what I use in client examples, and you'll be seeing that throughout this entire boot camp. And so there we go. Okay, just getting myself situated. So this is how to facilitate a brand strategy workshop. Before we get too into it though, because I have all of you here, or at least some of you from the boot camp here, I would like to go over introductions. So I'm actually going to stop sharing again so that we can all see each other. And I want to go through introductions really quick. So how we're going to do this is if, and I can call on people, we're going to go through really quick. Just say your name, say where you're from and your time zone, because if you haven't found a partner yet, this is the perfect time to scope out people and to just get to know their vibe and their personality and what they're into. And then also share what you do. So I know there's a lot of you who are designers, or you have been doing brand strategy, or you're from the marketing space, or you're from a completely different space too. I know there were a couple people that had introduced themselves that they were not designers or brand strategists, but they wanted to go into that. And so that also, we want to know what you do. So just really quick, your name, your time zone, and then what you currently do. So if we want to start off with, and I'm really sorry if I butcher some of your names, so please help me if I do end up pronouncing your name wrong. Please correct me so that I won't keep doing that. So if we want to start with, if you guys don't mind, is it Zuni? Is that how you say your name? Zuni? Yeah, we'll start with you if you don't mind.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Sumi from Germany. So my time zone is Berlin time zone. But I guess I have already a partner. And what's my background? My background is I have an agency background. I have a company background. I have a self-employed background. So it's a little bit mixed.
Great, wonderful. And yes, I'm glad that you mentioned that you had a partner. So if you do have a partner, please share that. And if you don't have a partner, also share that so that you all can connect if you don't. So welcome and nice to meet you. Is it Lena, or is that how you pronounce your name?
If that's me, then yes. This is how Lena. That's
Lena.
fine. Lena.
Okay.
So hello, I'm Lena. I'm from Lithuania. I'm already have a partner from Ireland. I will try to say his name. It's Simos Magyar, something like that. And I am currently working as a brand strategist. I have my website, and my previous background, I have a 50 years of graphic design career. So I'm pretty deep down into that field. So I just want to upgrade, let's say that, to build confidence for that services I serve.
Wonderful. And I see that you did ask if you're going to be getting the presentation file. Yes, I'm going to give you, I have to collect them at the end. So you're not going to get them right away after the call, but I need to collect everything, and then I'll be sharing with you as much as I possibly can. So yeah, good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Courtney, would you mind hopping on and introducing yourself?
Hi. So my name is Courtney Walker. I live in Canada, Ontario, so Eastern time zone. I do have a partner, and I'm a designer. I've been a graphic designer for more than 10 years, but I've always worked for someone. I've done like freelance on the side, but never dove in until now. I quit my job, and I'm doing freelance full time, and brand strategy is just the most exciting thing I've heard of in a while. Very, very cool. So I'm super excited to be here with you guys and learn.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Annalie. And Annalie, right? Annalie or Annalie? I always get them mixed up.
It's okay. You can say either way you want, or like Annie or something.
Okay.
You can choose.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Annalie. I'm from Stockholm, Sweden. I'm a brand strategist and marketing strategist. working both on my own and with my own company, which is an agency. So I do strategy and brand sprints mostly. And I have a partner. Thank you.
Wow, good. You guys are on it. Good job. Wonderful. Well, welcome. Welcome. So glad you're here. Brittany, do you want to go next? I'm just going in the order that I see you guys on my screen, so I'm not trying to pick on anyone.
Hey everybody, I'm Brittany. I am in America, close to Memphis, Tennessee, Central Standard Time. I have a partner, Ani. It looks like she's not on the call right now. And I'm a graphic designer, but I started off teaching graphic design and art at Mississippi State University for a few years, then moved into the home decor industry, designing lamps and furniture, but very much missed graphic design. And as of this summer, have moved into full-time freelance with my main client being a nonprofit, but I want to grow and change directions with that. So excited about this class.
That's awesome. Well, welcome. Welcome. Seamus,
Thank you.
You want to go next?
Hi guys, I'm Seamus from Ireland. I have a partner too, which is Lena, and you did very good there at pronouncing my name. That was good. Yeah. So I just graduated college there maybe 6 months ago. Spent a bit of time looking for a job, couldn't get one, so I went back to banking, which is what I've been working in for years. So graphic design is my side hustle at the moment. I mostly do branding for new business startups. That's generally mostly what I get. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to filling in a lot of gaps of, I talked about not learning certain things in college in Facebook, and that was pretty frustrating. I was waiting for them to teach me this, and then I left college and I thought, okay, they never even mentioned any of that. So I'm looking forward to, I know this course is going to fill in a lot of gaps in things that I really want to explore in terms of, expanding on branding and stuff like that. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's great. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. All the way from Ireland too. Hope it's not a weird time of the day for you.
7 p.m.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
I was always wondering. Okay, good. And then we'll go with, we have two Edwins in the class, but the one that you have Dean on your username. So can I call you Dean? I know it's not your name, but just so I can differentiate between the two. Cool. Can you jump on? Are you able to introduce yourself?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, or whatever time zone you are. I don't know why it's Dean on my screen, but I will figure that out as I have figured my my life for the past 40 years. I will do that later, but my name's Edwin. I live in sunny Los Angeles. People call me E for whatever reason. I guess it's a millennial hip thing, so you can call me that. My background is I went to ad school. I did animation, and then I now live in Los Angeles. I did corporate communications, and Dean is my fictional company branding strategy, and whatever you call it. So that's my goal. What else? And I did sell brand strategy 3 months ago when I watched Melinda and I followed all the episodes. I sold it for $3,500. I don't know if that's cool. I don't know how I pulled that off, but as I told you in my intro, I buffed it with carb heavy, logo and this and all that, but just so I can call myself a brand strategist like all of you guys. So I just did that. So thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks. Do you have a partner yet?
No partner. I'm looking for one.
Okay, great.
I know there's somebody from LA. I can't remember her name.
You
But I'll
guys
be
can
traveling.
connect too. Yeah, you can connect here in the chat too if you guys want to throughout today.
Yeah, I'll try to figure that out.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Amy, do you want to jump on?
Sure. Well, my name is Amy. I am based in Virginia Beach, Virginia, EST time zone, and I'm still looking for a partner. So if anyone's on the East Coast, hit me up. Otherwise, my background is in motion design and animation, and I currently work full-time for an in-house broadcasting company, and on the side I do freelance for motion design and animation and so forth. And what I'm hoping to apply in future projects is conducting strategy sessions, or apply strategy to my process when it comes to collaborating and developing like promos, graphics, or animation and so forth. And I implemented just a little bits and pieces I've gathered from the future and the school here and there, but nothing too extensive like doing the 3-hour or 4-hour session, and that's my ultimate goal.
Fantastic. So. Wonderful. Welcome, Amy. It's nice to see you here.
Nice. Yeah.
Samuel, do you want to hop on and introduce yourself? I don't know if it looks like do you have good internet or good Wi-Fi? Okay.
Okay. I'm Samuel. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm 22, and I run a branding and marketing, social media marketing agency. And the goal with the boot camp is to be able to go deeper in brand strategy. Like I stated in the Facebook comment, I already offered like a core framework to 5 people, 5 clients, but then too much information. But at the end of the day, I cannot able to document some of the vital information for the clients and all. Yes, so and I have a client. Her name is Zuni. She's on the call right now. So I'm excited to start the journey with everybody. Thank you.
That's wonderful. And like I said in the comments, you're very accomplished for such a young age too. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome. Let's go to Grant. You want to hop on?
Hey, my name's Grant. I'm from Sydney, Australia. I'll be moving to LA for a bit at the end of the month. So if anyone's in LA, I'd love to hook up. I've worked with basically in-house graphic design for many years, and I moved into fashion photography. At the moment, I'm doing video, branding, and photography for nonprofits, for corporates, for small businesses, that kind of thing. So basically a whole lot of different things, but I'm really looking forward to, I do brand strategy, but I'm looking forward to more of a formal process that ties everything together. I've sort of cobbled together a lot of things from what I've learned over the years, but I just want to see how the pros do it, really. So I'm looking forward to your end-to-end approach, Melinda.
Thank you.
I don't have a partner yet, so yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
okay,
nice to meet you,
great.
Melinda, finally.
Yeah, so nice. Well, Edwin doesn't have a partner, I hear, and he's in LA. So just throwing that out there.
That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Martin, do you want to hop on?
Hi guys, this is Martin. I'm currently in Cyprus, but I grew up in Italy and I spent most of my career in London. I have my own agency, which is called Factory 39, and we do branding, brand strategy, and software development. I did sell some strategy during this year. I did the course from the Future guys, but I'm just really, I realized I have some gaps, and since I really like, your down-to-earth approach, Melinda, I thought that you could, fill these gaps for me and just, cement my knowledge and learn something new. I have a partner, it's Annalie.
Great. Well, welcome. We'll go with the next Edwin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So, hey everyone. I'm Edwin. You can call me Eddie, actually.
Okay.
I'm in Montreal, up in cold Canada. I am a graphic designer, copywriter, and pretty much digital marketer. I got into learning more about design last year. Somebody told me my stuff sucked, and it kind of messed with me for a week. So I found the Future, got a lot better. They stopped saying I suck. I realized design is not arbitrary, which led me down to this whole brand strategy stuff. I took the core kit with the Future, which was really great, but just never really got a shot at trying it out. So I found out you were doing the boot camp. I was like, this is a great opportunity to learn it with more people, in better detail. So Right now I work with my buddy. He has an agency. We have a couple of clients, but I'm trying to go solo and get into like helping online course creators with their branding and all that stuff. So that's kind of my story. I didn't have a partner, but I do now thanks to the chat. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well,
Forward to it.
welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's Ani, right? That's how you say your name? Yeah. You want to jump on?
Hi guys. So I'm Ani. Forgive my background. We're still moving. But so I have been a freelance designer for about 12 years. And to make a long story short, I got burnt out and I was like, like everyone else, when I saw the, Chris and Melinda's series, I was like, oh my God, I can get paid for this. This is what my clients kept getting irritated with me, because when I was supposed to be designing for them, I would be asking them questions. They're like, what are you here for again? Do you remember? So I'm super excited to be here. When Melinda put this out, I was asking her tons of questions. I hope I didn't irritate you. But I'm so excited to be here. I feel like brand strategy was created for me, for my brain. And I'm really excited to tap in. I've done a few, and I have a few coming up. So I'm excited to turn my hodgepodge of a strategy session into something official.
Yeah. And do you have a partner?
Yeah, Brittany Spencer. There she is.
Great.
She's my partner. And we were waiting on someone else to respond. I'm not sure if we're gonna do 3 in a group, but for now I'm with Brittany.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. Lauren, it looks like you're back. Are you able to hop on?
Yes, sorry, I was just out for a meal with my sister.
You're fine.
So I was
You're fine.
racing home trying to get to you guys. But yeah, really, really happy to be here. I'm from Derbyshire, which is in the UK, 3 hours north of London. I'm sure everyone is familiar with London, so it's a little bit easier. Yeah, I'm a brand identity designer. And the reason for kind of jumping on this course, obviously I've been following Melinda for quite a while, since the YouTube videos, which I just absolutely love. And I kind of resonated with, always kind of looking at the bigger picture for clients, trying to fill in extra gaps aside from design, and looking at ways I can offer value aside from, just visuals. So I suppose part of it is refining that offering and getting paid for it, because I was kind of doing the extra work, just because I was enjoying it and just because I wanted to get those results for clients. But yeah, you made me realize that I should be getting paid for that.
Exactly. And do you have a partner?
I do, yes. Yeah, I'm partnered with Courtney.
You guys are on it. Awesome. Awesome.
In work.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Welcome. Pete, do you want to hop on?
Hey guys. It is great to be here. My name is Pete Rodriguez, and you guys have beautiful accents, I must say. I'm just drooling over everyone's accent, and I'm just from boring Pennsylvania. But yeah, so really I've been I just made the jump. I was a lead designer with a company and just made the jump to full-time freelance and kind of doing my own thing. So this is all stuff that, when it comes to brand strategy, that I kind of was just giving away for free in the past, and hoping to not do that going forward. So I'm super thankful to be here. Yeah, no, it's been cool, just seeing everybody's comments and chat, in the group and stuff. So I'm excited to get to know all of you guys more, certainly, and Melinda as well. But I do have a partner. His name's Adam, and he's from Charlottesville or Charleston, South Carolina, or something like that. But he's not on today. He said he was going to watch the recording. So
awesome. Awesome. Well, it's so nice to finally meet you, Pete.
Yeah.
Now that we've been connecting over Instagram too. I know I've been connecting with some of you, over Instagram or email. So it's really cool to see you guys face to face. Awesome. Well, welcome. We have Yari and Gus, but I know you guys are off camera. So I'm going to assume right now that you're not able to hop on, and that's fine. So if you want to introduce yourself later, I see in the chat Gus is not able to. That's fine. Yeah. feel free to introduce yourself in the group or hit me up, and we can always do this also for people who aren't on. If you're listening to the recording right now, you can introduce yourself on one of the Q&As, because it would be really nice for you guys to get to know each other. I know that it has helped me to connect with other strategists and get to know them, because you will inevitably have questions that either I won't be available to answer if that's down the line, or not be able to get back to you fast enough. And so having a partner, having some people that you can band together with and learn from, I always recommend that. And I know that I've gotten really far because of that too. So connect with each other. It's why I think taking this time to introduce ourselves is very, very important because of that. I believe so much in community, and you'll get way farther if you do that. Yuri, I just saw that you hopped on. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I just wanted to say hi real quick.
Yeah.
I can't talk too long, but I'm from New York. I don't have a partner yet. I don't think. I wrote on Facebook, but I haven't been on since I wrote my info, but I'll definitely check the chat. I am a brand designer, and I've done a strategy session in the past, but it was, kind of pieced together from videos on YouTube from the future, from watching your stuff. So I'm definitely excited to have something that is structured and I can follow along and have someone to ask questions to, and like have a group that we can kind of all figure it out together.
Awesome. Well, welcome, and thanks for hopping on really quick.
Sure.
All right. So Gus, that's totally fine. He had introduced himself in the group, so if you guys haven't yet, you can go read his intro. So I'm going to hop into this now, and I'm hopping back into it. So what we are going to do in this call, in this week, what we are aiming to do, and hopefully it's not going to go too long, intro to the course. Then we're going to go over prepping for a workshop and then actually facilitating a workshop. So I'm going to give you all of the tools that you need for prepping and getting ready for a workshop, and then the template that I use for facilitating the workshop, but then also walking you through what I did, what I changed, when I use one thing versus another, and what you can do to alter your own, to make it your own, really. Because that's what I want for you guys. I don't want you to just use my framework and run with it like you would any other framework. I really want to teach you how to think through this, and again, to make it your own, because as a problem solver, we can't really we can't pick up and use just anyone's process. We have to make it our own. And so that's one of my goals for you as you go through this course. So my hope and my aim is that you will leave this call with everything you need to facilitate your next workshop. And I say your next one because you might have already facilitated a workshop, and I know a lot of you have, or you might have attempted it, or you've been doing this for a really long time, but you just wanted to refine your process. So wherever you are at in your journey, my goal for you is that you'll feel more confident in going into your next workshop, whether that is your first, your 100th, your 5th, whatever it is. So an overview really quick. We have the Facebook group. That is where I have mentioned everything's going to live. So this is a beta course, so things are being built. Think of it as the train tracks are being built as the train is moving. So things are going to change. Things are going to be refined. I have gotten a few messages from you guys when you are confused. Thank you for those. Because the more that you tell me those things, I can refine it in the group, and you're probably not the only one with that question. So it really helps me out. If you are confused, just hit me up, DM me. I love it when you do that, and it does not annoy me, because I really want to make this not overwhelming for you, because I hate overwhelm. So if you've been following me at all, you know that I can't handle too much going on and over stimuli. I don't do well with that. I need clarity, and I know you guys do too if we're going to get anywhere together. So if you're ever confused, DM me. I've already talked about partners. It seems like the majority of you already do have a partner. Fantastic. If you don't yet, post in the group again. Annoy people until you get a partner. It's okay. So if you haven't yet got a partner and you really want one and no one has hit you up yet, post again in the Facebook group until you're able to get a partner. I know it feels awkward. That's just the name of the game right now. So we have that. Then a timeline. I did post this timeline. I'm not going to go in depth over it, but if you haven't seen this, it is in the group just to give you an overview of what we're doing. Week 1 is the facilitation of the workshop. you'll be facilitating a workshop with your partner. So outside of this time, you'll be meeting with them. You guys can decide when and how long and how that's going. Week 2 and 3, I decided to do 2 weeks for developing a roadmap, just because if you haven't finished facilitating a workshop, it might take you some time to do that. And then that will give us time to really dive into the roadmaps, but then also do critiques on roadmaps. I know that's something that multiple people have shared with me that would be really cool if we could critique those. So using 2 weeks would, I hope, give us enough time for that. Week 4, we're going to be talking about translating the roadmap into brand identity. I know some of you are not designers, and that's okay. So hopefully you'll still get a lot out of that, or you'll be able to see if you did want to offer brand identity, what and how and who you would need to hire to execute that, and maybe what the process could be for that if you were ever interested in offering that. If not, you can use week 4 as the more time to execute your roadmap or facilitate another workshop. And then week 5 is how to sell brand strategy. That's where it's going to be really important for you guys to be in on that week as well, because that one, obviously how to sell it. But I want to help you guys develop a plan for you to get to charge $10,000 if that's where you want to be, or higher. But a lot of you have not yet hit that mark for just strategy alone. And so I'll share with you, which I've shared before, my process and how I got there, but I want to help you guys develop your own process and milestones and steps in how you can plan to actually get there yourself that you feel comfortable with. Because I know that the way I do things is different from the way you do it and the way Chris Do does it, and we all have to find our own way in this. And so I want to make sure that you leave this boot camp confident that you can facilitate a workshop, that you can produce a roadmap, and that you have a plan in actually charging for it and getting yourself to the point where you feel comfortable charging for strategy alone, minus any deliverables besides the roadmap. So these are some current struggles that I heard from you guys right now, and then also from the Facebook group. There's much more than just this, but these are the ones also that I'm going to be really focusing on and addressing throughout this course. So structuring your own strategy framework or tweaking the one you already have. Selling strategy as a separate service, that's going to be really big for you guys. Facilitating and customizing your workshop and roadmap. Having the option to do less design work or none at all, because I know some of you aren't designers. And then know how strategy helps the bottom line of a company and increase the value to clients. So that's also a really big one. So this, hold on, I'm changing my speaker view really quick. This disclaimer really quick. So by attending this class or watching the replay, you do agree to not reproduce, not sell, and not show the class material outside this boot camp. All client examples are proprietary and can't be shared outside of this group. So I will be sharing with you some client examples that are okay to share with you guys, but just don't be posting them online or sharing them with other people that haven't been in the group. A lot of it requires explanation too, and so I just don't want these things floating around online and for anyone that's outside of this group. So just wanted to put that out there. So what is brand strategy? I wanted to go over this because we all need to get on the same page. If you ask 10 different people what strategy is, you're going to get 10 different answers. And you're in Melinda's boot camp, so you're going to get Melinda's answer. And that's what you're here for, right? So you can define it however you want, but this is how I'm approaching it throughout this entire boot camp. So I just want you guys to know how I'm viewing it so that we all know where we're coming from. So strategy, to me, it's simply an action plan from point A to B. So we have point A, we have point B, and there you go. From here, we have actual steps to get from point A to point B. So with a brand strategy, how I see it is it's an action plan for a brand to get from point A to point B. And typically, the brand is point A, and to me, and then B is the ideal client or customer. I was going to put customer, but I couldn't fit it, so I just put client. So those are point A and point B. That's how I see it. So you have things that you need to do in order to connect the two. To me, brand strategy is like matchmaking. I think Yo Santosa said this with Chris Do on one of the branding episodes. Such a good episode if you haven't watched it. And she had mentioned that it's like matchmaking. So what branding does in a brand strategy, it connects the brand to the ideal client in a way that makes the ideal client or customer attracted to the brand, so they love it and they want more of it. They want it in their lives. So brand strategy surfaces unique insights about the brand. It surfaces unique insights about the customer. So you're surfacing both, right? So that's what you're doing in a brand strategy workshop. You're surfacing what's unique and wonderful about a brand. Then you're surfacing what's unique and wonderful about a customer and what they need and the gaps that the brand can fill. And then you plot how to connect those two in order to attract, in order to serve, and delight the customer. So that's my viewpoint of what strategy is. And so it's not, because I know a lot of people will focus so much on the ideal customer. And they'll say, well, we need to form a brand that just fits this ideal customer. But then they forget that the brand also needs a why. It needs the story. It needs something deeper than just being this thing that meets this need for a customer. Like it needs to have a personality. It needs, just like if you look at two people going on a date or matchmaking people, that you don't want to create this persona and this fake person to be attractive to this other person. You want to just surface what's amazing about both so that you can see is their alignment. And so I'm big, you'll hear me say the word alignment a lot too. I'm big on alignment, where you're just finding out what the truth is, the deep truths of the brand that fit the deep truth and the deep need of the customer. So if we go deeper, if we go into, this is how I'm seeing it visually too. So if we have the business, and I'm talking really about the brand. So the business side, is another thing. But here's how I see it. So we have the brand strategy as the foundation, the project and creative strategy, and then we have the deliverables at the top. So for me and how I see it, this is what the customer sees and the client, your customer of your client that hires you. A lot of clients come to us for this stuff. They just say they need this certain deliverable. This is the thing that's seen. When you go deeper, what is seen only by the business internally, that's project and creative strategy, that's brand strategy. A lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of studios will concentrate on creative strategy and project strategy, thinking they're doing brand strategy, but they're not. And so when we get a little deeper, we can see for deliverables, that's things like logos, identity, websites, any tangible deliverable. For the project and creative strategy, when I refer to that, I think of creative briefs, content strategy, UX, marketing strategy, sales funnels. So anything that's more of the, it's not the foundation, it's the skeleton of everything. So that's not necessarily what the customer may see, but it's the underpinnings. And then when you get deeper, you get to positioning, mission, brand direction, user personas. Yes, there's user personas in the middle one too, but really what the brand core is all about, that's brand strategy. So I see a lot of people, like I said, focusing on the creative strategy and wanting to just beef up their identity process, but not realizing that they're not really solving big, massive problems for the business. Because the bigger the problem, the more you're going to have to back up into brand strategy. So if it's not really a huge problem and someone's like, I just need a brochure done, that's up here and that's not a big problem. But then they're like, hey, we have a broken sales funnel. Then that's a pretty big problem. That's not the biggest problem. But if they have a huge issue with fundamentally connecting, like we were going back to this idea, if they have an issue for their brand to connect with their ideal customer, that falls into the brand strategy. That's a much bigger issue, because then you have to reposition, you have to look at where the disconnect is between fundamentally who this brand is and what they stand for, how they talk, how they look, and who they're attracting. Are they even attracting the right person? Are they aiming at the right person? And then I broke this down too, that when the brand strategy portion is more of the why, that's the core. When you get into project and creative strategy, that's more the how. So how does their why actually live in the world? What does it look like? How do they talk? How do they sell? How do they attract their customer? And then the what is the actual tangible goods that end up coming from all this great foundational work. And so deliverables are still important, but they need to be built on this strong foundation of brand strategy, and then building on project and creative strategy. And then you can build the right deliverables instead of just building something and then realizing it disconnected from the very beginning. So I see the chat going off. I haven't checked yet, but does anyone want to pop on? Was there a big question? Was there anything that you don't understand or you want to say before I move on to the next part, or that I missed in the chat? You can pop on if you need to. We're good? Okay, I'm checking the chat really quick. Okay. I'll stop every so often if you guys have questions. So what can brand strategy do? So these are some of the things that have helped my clients, and there's so many more things that can happen. But these are the main things that I've noticed that have helped my clients. Allocate funds to maximize ROI. So they don't know always where to put their funds and what will actually make a difference. And a lot of times with brand strategy, we're making a hypothesis. So I don't guarantee things. The only thing I guarantee is a roadmap and a plan to quote unquote win the war. It's a strategy to win the war, right? It doesn't mean we're going to win it. There's no way I can guarantee that, but I can guarantee the best possible plan to get there. And then we will check in later to see if that worked. But at least now with brand strategy, I can help my clients allocate their funds accordingly, what makes the most sense. And then we can test that to see, does that actually work, and come back to it later. The other thing is they reach their revenue and awareness goals. A lot of times, the revenue, you're not going to notice. You don't, because it's such a foundational piece, the brand strategy portion, you won't know the ROI on the revenue for a very long time. And that's a different story that we can talk about more in the how to sell portion. But the awareness goals, this is going to affect awareness pretty quickly, because that's something you attract that client really quickly. And so awareness goals are easier to track for brand strategy. The other thing that it does for clients, and this is more of an emotional thing, it produces clarity, focus, confidence, alignment among their teams, and motivation. The cool part about this is, if done right, if your clients are in a good emotional state from working with you and from getting this brand strategy, they will be motivated to put it into practice. And so we've all, maybe, now I don't want to assume this, but I've heard a lot of people say, well, people have gotten brand strategy done, but then they didn't do anything with it. They just sat on that roadmap and they didn't implement it. To me, the strategist then did not do their job in helping to motivate the client. Now, there are other circumstances that happen. There are, internal things that happen of why they can't execute on that. But if it's because they're just not motivated, that has to do with what happened in the brand strategy workshop, because it's not cut and dry. Like this stuff, you have to manage emotions. You have to really play into empathy. You have to listen. There's so much more that happens than just getting objective information from people. Like, you're actually managing the energy in the room. You're helping to align their team and their decision makers. And so there's a lot that can happen here that will help in the end them moving forward with actually implementing everything. The other thing it helps with is knowing how to talk about their own story. I've had clients come to me say, I don't even know how to describe what's unique about us or about our backstory, or how to use that in our messaging, or how it connects with the client. And then knowing who to target and how to talk to them, whether that is just visually or that is messaging or in positioning. Positioning is one of the main things that you're going to be doing in brand strategy. And so just for them knowing who they are and knowing where they can put their stake in the ground and who they're aiming at, if they can just know that, then everything else, if we go back to that chart, then everything will be aligned. So if they know who they're talking to, then they know what they're going to say in their sales funnel and their marketing materials, and they're going to know what the deliverables are going to be. They know where they're going to have to go on what platform. So obviously I don't need to sell you guys on brand strategy because you're here. So anyway, throughout this course, if you guys have definitions or if you don't know what words mean that I'm using, if there's anything that you don't know, can you just start writing those down, and then I can make a post about it, or if you want to just DM me, because I'm going to make a definitions list. I know that was a request from some of you. So just write down the words that you don't know what the definitions are, or you're not sure what that is, and let me know, and then I can start gathering a definitions list. Any big questions before I go into how to prep? You can turn on your mic and come on if you need to. Okay, we're good. We'll go into how to prep. So how to prep for a workshop. I do both in person and remote. I've probably done, I want to say either half remote, half in person. It's becoming actually more and more remote because I'm getting more international clients that don't care to fly me out, and they don't think it's a big deal to be doing it remote, and it's worked fine for me. So it works both ways. So I wanted to give you some remote tools that I use. I use Zoom. So just like we're on a call right now, if it is between, like, if there's like 2 clients or 2 people on their side, it works fine. If there's any more than 2 people on the client side that's going to be in the meeting, that would be a lot. I've done it before, and I've done it before, and they weren't on camera, and it was actually me sitting in with another strategist, and he was running it and I was just helping out. And so we couldn't see them. I didn't even know who was talking, how many people were in the room. They sounded like they were trailing off, but then we didn't know because we couldn't see them. And so I would recommend that everyone be on camera, and that you do only have 1 or 2 people on the client side, because otherwise it is really hard to manage. Calendly, I always use to book these things if it's remote. It's also super good for different time zones. So I had a client in Australia, and so I knew that their good times to be booking these sessions were from 4 p.m. my time to 9 p.m. So I made a separate Calendly calendar for them that was open during those times, and I showed them where to go, and they were able to book it. So it's really good if you have different time zones, because it converts the time zone in Calendly, and then it will add it to your calendar. So highly recommend that. Blue Yeti mic. So this is what I use. It's really good to have good audio. Good audio is actually better than having good video, because if people can't hear you, I mean, that's what they need. The number one is audio. So if you're going to be doing this remote, I do suggest getting a mic. They're not too expensive. I also use the Logitech webcam. You don't have to use these ones, but these are what I've used, and I've had good experience with them. And then the workshop template, which we're going to go over today. For in-person workshops, book a meeting room. So you can do that at co-working spaces. You can book an Airbnb. You can book a WeWork, or you can ask the client if there's a meeting room there. If you're going to be going to their place, you can work it out with them. I've done things where there were private rooms in coffee shops or tea houses. There were cafes that I've done this before. If it's a one-person thing, because I've done a lot with solopreneurs or people who only have 1 to 2 people on their team, and that works fine if it's an outside place. And then when I have really big meetings, so I've done the biggest one I ran, there were 8 of us, and that was at their conference room. And then another one I had was about 5, and then we actually rented out another conference room. So I book meeting rooms at friends ad agencies or friends studios. So get to know the people in your town, or if you know people in the place that you're going to be doing this, find where you can book a meeting room. That really helps. Bring your computer with the template or the deck. I usually hook up to an HDMI with the template, but I've also done half of a meeting, half or all, I think, on a whiteboard. So you can decide what you want to do. It depends on your setup of your room. I know some people bring those, the big pads of paper too. I like making things really simple myself, so I try not to do anything crazy. I bring snacks, water, and I do plan lunch. So sometimes I have brought lunch in for them. And it also depends on how much you're charging for this, because once I started charging $10,000, I figured I probably should start bringing lunch in. Now, I've done a $10,000 strategy session remote only, so I wasn't doing any of this extra stuff, but it is good to have snacks, especially if you're there all day. So I've done that large one that I did with the 8 people, I had it over 2 days. And so I realized it was like an all day thing too. It was 6 to 8 hours each day. So I knew that we had to bring snacks. Funny thing is they brought snacks too, but it's all good. But also you want water. You just don't want them to be stranded, and you want them to be able to think. So I bring healthy snacks, water, and then plan some kind of lunch with us. We actually went out, so that was easy, but you want to make sure that you're not planning things on the fly. So you want that to be done ahead of time. I do recommend bringing an assistant. You don't have to, and I don't have an assistant when I do remote meetings, but bringing an assistant if you have a very large group of people like I did. I actually did bring another brand strategist with me just to be my extra set of ears and eyes too, because if you start seeing, or you might not be able to see it if you're leading the meeting, but people might start going on their phones, or they start checking out, or there's a couple people maybe that they feel not comfortable talking, and you want everyone's input. So the assistant can then tell you on the breaks, hey, this person wasn't talking, or I noticed that the CEO is taking over and you might want to ask this other person more questions. You just want an extra set of eyes and ears, and just to help you out with stuff too. So you don't have to do that, but it is a recommendation. Before the workshop too, just to prep yourself mentally. So be ready mentally. You go into this knowing that your ability to problem solve, your ability to make connections, to listen, and to ask good questions, that is what your main asset that you walk into the room with is. It's not the framework that you're going to use, although that is helpful, but it's you. It's the way you think. It's the way you creative problem solve, all of that, and the questions that you're able to ask, and how you're able to identify an insight and then follow it down a rabbit hole. That is so incredibly valuable. So just when you go into a workshop, go in knowing that, because it's going to give you so much more confidence than being freaked out that you didn't do enough research, that you don't know enough, that what if you find a problem that you don't know how to solve. Don't worry about that. You are a problem solver. You wouldn't have gotten this far if you weren't. So just go into every meeting knowing that and being confident in that. The next thing is ask your client to bring in a list of competitors, just to get them thinking about that ahead of time, so that you're not, because I heard someone do this before where they researched their clients' competitors, and then they realized that a bunch of these competitors, like, they weren't around anymore, or they went out of business, and it kind of looked weird. So you want to ask them for information. You don't want to come in with information that's probably wrong. And then send a schedule ahead of time. So this is what an example of a schedule for me looked like. We had someone come in to do a presentation, so that's why you'll see that up there. But this was our schedule, and then for day 2. So your schedules might look completely different. I have done strategy sessions. Gosh, I've done one that was 3 different meetings. It was 4 hours each meeting. It was crazy. And then I've done others that were 8 hours. I've done some that were 6. I've done 2 4-day. So you can expand or make it smaller depending on how much time you give yourself and how much you've charged a client. So if you didn't charge them that much, maybe you don't want to give them a 2 full 8-hour day thing. It's fine. You can shorten it. And I'll show you how to cut those things out. So we'll go on to actually how to facilitate the workshop. Big note that I want to make. Do not be a glorified note taker. I have been told by multiple clients that they have hired designers and studios and agencies that said they do brand strategy, and all they do was ask questions and take notes. And that was it. There were no insights. There were no connections made. They didn't even process the information. All they did was spit back what they heard in the meeting. Do not do that. If you're going to do that, you might as well just give them a questionnaire, because you're not doing anything. That's not strategy. So what you want to do is surface those valuable insights. That's what you're there for. That's why you have to meet in person or remote versus sending a questionnaire, because a questionnaire is only going to get surface level information. What happens in a workshop is you ask the question, and then you can ask deeper questions depending on what you find. So if there's something that was really interesting, then you can pick that out and then go deeper there. You can't do that in a questionnaire. The other thing you do is make connections no one else could. The best thing on earth, and once you're in a few workshops and you do this, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you make a connection to something that, say, they said earlier, or you come up with an idea and you share it in the workshop, so you're actually showing your creative thinking in the workshop, And the client goes, oh my gosh, how did I not see that? That's so obvious. And they get excited about it. That is the best thing ever, because you're just showing, hey, it was so obvious. How did no one else see that? You want to aim for those things. So I talk a lot about surfacing insights, golden nuggets. That's what you want to do. You want to find those golden nuggets, and then you want to make those connections that nobody else saw, because that's what's going to differentiate your client's brand. So tips for doing that: be curious. Just ask, again, go in asking questions, go in curious. When you find a golden nugget, follow it. So if you find something interesting, keep asking questions on it, surface more insights, see if it's an interesting story. It might not be, but try. Once you find that golden nugget, boil things down to a single focus. So in my template I'm going to be showing you, I really try to focus things on just one thing. So just one problem, one user persona, one core thing, because at least it gives you that solid starting point, and you can always have multiple choices later. You can always have multiple user personas later that are more detailed, but at least we can focus in on one thing that will be the direction that we're going to go in. So I always try to boil things down to a single focus as much as I possibly can. The other thing that I kind of tapped into, use the framework as a guide. It is not a script. You can go off script, you can alter the script, you can cut things out. If you see that things are going really well in one direction, cut out some stuff later. I did that with one of my big strategy sessions that I had. I realized we were getting really close on time and we weren't able to go through the archetypes that I normally go through. And there was something else, that the brand style or something like that. And I just thought, this other stuff that we gathered was so good. We can probably cut that out and it's not going to make that big of a difference. So once you have more experience, you'll be able to know what can you cut out, what's not that big of a deal. And you'll be able to do this on the fly because, again, you're a problem solver. You can do that. So questions that are really good to ask, and I have written some posts on this, so you might have already seen some of this, but asking how so. So if someone says something, make a statement about their brand, you ask them how so. So even if they say, oh, I was imagining that my brand that my brand's classic versus traditional. How so? What does that look like to you? Go deeper. Always ask them how so. So if they say that we're really strong, and if they're trying to describe themselves, again, ask them how so. Get them to give you an example of what that actually looks like so that you understand. The point of strategy sessions is that you understand your client. They don't just feel understood, but you actually do understand them. You want to understand them. So asking questions like how so really helps. Tell me more. Just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper into whatever it is they're trying to share. Come in blind. That's something from Chris Do. That's why his agency was called Blind. There's no need, this is from my point of view, there's no need to research ahead of time. So people get really worried, well, what if I haven't done anything in that industry before? What if I don't know exactly what they do? That's okay. You're going to find out all of those things in the meeting. And it's actually better that you come in blind, because you're not going to make assumptions ahead of time about what they should do or what they should look like. And you're going to start getting that thinking where you're just going to see things in a box that has already been made. And so you coming in blind you'll come in with this ability to see things so far beyond what they could, because they're going to teach you about what they do, and they have to tell you like you're a fifth grader what it is, because how are they going to connect with someone, or they're a deal client, if they're using too much jargon? And if you can't even understand what they do, then there's an issue in communication and how they're communicating their brand. So it's a good thing that you're there to learn and to gather as much as you can in that meeting. And because you're going to be a problem solver on the spot, you're actually going to show and practice that problem solving ability in there. So it's okay to improv. Again, being okay to go off script. It's okay to skip things. It's okay to adjust things. Just know that ahead of time and don't worry if you do that. The other thing is, before we jump into the actual template, cultivate a consultant mindset. So I know a lot of people have been talking about this too. This way of doing strategy, it's a way of thinking as well. I approach every meeting now, every coaching call, every chat that I have with my friends when we're talking about business in this way of thinking. It's a way of asking questions. It's a way of finding someone's goal. That's number 2. Finding their aim. What do they want? What's their goal? What's the value? What do they value? And so if you start practicing this, not just with your clients in strategy sessions, but you just practice this in general, trying to figure out like, what is someone trying to do? And how can I help them get there? That will help you cultivate that mindset when you go into these strategy sessions. The other thing, which I had tapped into a little bit earlier, clients want to be understood and heard. The best thing that a client can tell you is, you get us, you know us, you understand us. I want to work with you because you understand what's going on. You understand me, you understand my goals, you understand who I'm trying to target. And so it's not just about you understanding them, which I mentioned before. It's also about them feeling understood. So repeating back what you heard, making sure that you get them to confirm. So if you repeat back what you heard and they go, yes, that's right. You want to hear that. You want to hear them go, yeah, you got it right. Or they might say no, and they'll correct you. That's totally fine. But try to reflect back what you're hearing or summarize what you're hearing. Summarizing is great in strategy. So there was a client where I had told him, because he had a lot of ideas, and I was like, have you ever heard of shiny object syndrome? And he goes, no, but I totally have it. I was like, wow, okay, that's great. So that's going to give you an idea of what he was like. He was just like ideas everywhere. So, he told stories for a very long time, very interesting stories, but oh my goodness. So he would go on and on with the stories, and then I would try to synthesize what he said and then say it back to him. And I said, so what I hear you saying is this. And he's like, yeah, that's actually what I was trying to say. So for the last 20 minutes, he was telling me the story, and I was able to synthesize and summarize it in a way that I said it back to him. And he goes, yeah, you got it. You know it. So it's really good to take a ton of information. Hopefully this is how you think. Ton of information, and then synthesize it and process it on the spot and be able to verbalize it back to someone so that they feel understood, but then so that they know you're able to communicate better than they can what they were trying to say. I saw some stuff going on in the chat. I'm going to open up the template. While I do, does anyone want to hop on and either comment or ask a question? You're free to, if you'd like.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so what if while in discovery, you kind of spotted some problems that you need to work on in the workshop? Like, would I still go in blind and just like see what comes out there? Or do I like start with those things and then see what else comes out?
Right. So what I'm hearing from you is that, are you saying in the discovery call and the sales call?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. We will be going over more in the 5th week, but to answer that and to make sure I understand. Mm-hmm. So you're saying if you uncover some things in the discovery call that are an issue, should you go into the strategy session with that in mind? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, go in with it in mind because they told you that. So it's not something that you came to the table with. It's actually something they gave you, and that's fine. When I said go in blind, it was more like you going off and doing your own research. That's what I mean, come in blind. So I think that still counts. If the client actually gives you information, take it all in. Doesn't mean it's right, because it might not be, but at least you have an idea of what they see as a problem. So yeah.
Right. So just to clarify, like when I had discovery with them, I had to do some research to present to them because I was kind of pitching them on doing a strategy session. And so I kind of presented some facts that alerted them that, oh my God, so we have this problem too. So they didn't necessarily tell me, but I uncovered it for them. And so I didn't know if we should start with that, or because it's not going to be like a one day workshop. Like you were talking about, sometimes you have to break it up. And so, yeah.
Yeah. That is a good question. Are you able to wait on that till we get to the selling one? Okay. Cause I don't know if you're in the middle.
Oh, no. Well, it's actually Saturday.
Oh, can you bring that question then to a Q&A?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, that would be, and then we'll address it. If you can bring it to the Q&A, and then we'll address it more there. We will be talking way more about that in the how to sell strategy.
Okay.
But then in the Q&A, at least we can maybe talk about your actual situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other
Hey,
questions?
Melinda.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just curious about the business strategy behind. Does that sit under the brand strategy? And if so, are you talking to business strategy goals within the brand strategy context? Does that even make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So are you asking about am I tapping into the business goals in strategy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, business goals are attached to brand. I mean, you can't really, there's no point of a brand if it's not serving a business. And so, yes, we do talk about business goals as they can be affected by brand. So there's some stuff that, we can help with efficiency, we can help with processes, but really that's more of an internal thing that's going on. We might tap into it, but we're more dealing with the marketing, sales, brand perception, positioning, but those things are connected to a business goal. Yeah.
Yeah. I've just got an example at the moment where I'm finding that I'm addressing business goals first, and then the brand, to make sense of the brand, it has to fit within that. But I'm finding I'm expanding my role too far. So just interesting where you put put a fence around it, but that's fine. I just interested to hear your process on that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think this is also connected with the how to sell strategy too. And that will be in the 5th week and we'll uncover how to get to those goals and what goals that we're going to uncover in the sales meeting first. That will be the red thread that's going to guide us through the entire project. So it is hard to see at this moment because I haven't talked about that at all. And I do have a blog post on that. If you guys haven't read it yet, I can send it to you, but it's essentially the outline of the sales process and what questions to ask. And it does pertain to goals and then how you're going to measure this entire thing, how you're going to measure if this is actually successful. So I can send that in the group if you guys haven't read it yet. But yeah, I think your question does probably go more with sales because that's where, we can't really sell it if we don't know what goal we're hitting at, but there are some things that overlaps with business goals and internal workings of the business too. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good questions. How do we prepare the client for the brand strategy session? Edwin, I think you asked me that. So how you prepare them is by sending them a schedule. And then also that's just for starting the session. Again, we'll go over how to sell it and then onboarding and everything in that week. Sorry, we're kind of going backwards because I figure how are we going to sell anything that we don't even know how to do yet? So I wanted to show you what the actual process is first and then how to sell it after. So we'll go into the workshop template. Okay, we'll go into the workshop template. So this is a template I'm going to be sharing with you guys, but just to give you a run through of it. So you have, the cover and then the goals. So this is what we were just talking about. You're going to have a list of goals that come from the sales conversation, or if you call it discovery, whatever your sales call is, you're going to have goals that you uncover there and ways that you're going to measure those goals. You're always going to put them in your documents. You're going to keep reminding your client of this because this is what everybody is aiming at. This is where you're headed. This is where everyone's headed. And hopefully you have talked with the decision makers. You are in a meeting with the decision makers because that's a big thing. So in an ideal world, you would have all the decision makers in the room. I know that as companies, if you're working with large companies, you might be only working with the marketing team. It depends on how big this company is. In an ideal scenario, you would always be with the decision makers. I have tried, I believe all of my strategy sessions I'm thinking about it have had the decision makers in it. So the CEO, the CMO, the CFO, anyone else who would have a decision in what the brand goes for, because you do not want to make something and then later someone comes up and says, hey, we can't do that because XYZ. So you want to put in the goals that you get in from the sales conversation. So we'll be talking about that later. I'm just telling you now to always be repeating them back to your client so that if they change for whatever reason, you can be like, oh, okay, then everything's going to change because our goal has changed. So what I do is I walk in and I prep them with what strategy is, because a lot of times you're going to have a meeting with not just the person you had a sales call with, but with someone else they added to the table, whether that might be, say you talk to the CEO and they're bringing in the CMO or whatever. You're going to have people in that room that aren't sure what's going on. It's also good to have someone in the room that maybe is not a decision maker, but has a fresh perspective of the business. If that's a new hire, if that is, I've had assistants in there before and they have really good things to share too. So you can talk that over with the CEO or founder and see what they think. But I ask everyone coming in, what do you want to get out of this session? And I go around the room and I ask each individual person, even if they're just an assistant, even if they're not one of the decision makers, but the founder or the decision maker has said, hey, this person should be in here. I want to know what everyone's goal is for the day, not just for this entire thing, but just for the day. I want to know, do you need or want to walk out of here with something? A lot of times I get someone saying that like, I want to get an idea if it's a CFO. I want to get an idea of what we need to budget for this or what's going to come next. Other times I've got like really weird stuff that I didn't expect. Like someone said, I just want to know how to talk about my story because it was with the solopreneur. I'm like, oh, that's a new one. I didn't know that. Other times it is to make sure that they know what to work on next or what they're going to work on in the next 3 months. So you're going to get a different answer depending on who you ask. And you want to surface all those things so that everyone leaves happy at the end. And you can actually have an aim for your day. So you're going to go through your framework, but you're going to have this in the back of your mind thinking, oh, I want to make sure that I go over this because this person asked for it. Or tell them straight up, hey, that's not something we're going to go over in this meeting. But as long as you know where everyone is at, you can start helping the team align. Because a lot of times with companies, everybody has their own goals and nobody's telling each other. And we want to get everything out on the table. We want to facilitate this meeting so that everyone feels heard and that they feel that they're getting their goals met so that they can help the company move forward. The other thing is I have asked in the past to, I know this was suggested from if you watched Core or if you've learned from Christo, to ask for permission to guide the conversation and lead the room, because you have these leaders in the room. You have people who are used to leading and you're an outside consultant. And so it's really nice to come in and say, would you mind, can I have permission to lead this meeting and to lead this workshop? Just so that everyone knows who has the last say in this, and so that you can call out people if they are on their cell phones or if they're not listening and they understand why. I use this illustration. This is from the book, The One Thing. Just the idea of so this is me explaining strategy to the whole group. Have you all been putting your efforts, energy, resources, and budget into these things that you don't know if it's going to work? Everybody's going a different way. You're trying a ton of things, but nothing is getting traction. And everyone's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. And then going for the second illustration of, well, what if we all were aligned and we actually put our energy, resources, and budget to go one place and know where we're going? They're like, yeah, that's exactly what we need. So then I show them, we're going to go over 3 things: the brand, the customers, and we call them users. So I'm going to use customers and users interchangeably. And the goals. So remember, we had those 2 things where you had the brand, you had the ideal customer. The goals and the priorities are all the little things that we need to do to connect the 2. These are the rules that were taken. I believe a lot of what I have, if you've taken Core from the future, it's going to look familiar, but then you're going to see the things throughout that I've updated, that I've changed, that I've streamlined. So some of this might be familiar. I ask that everyone participates, no matter if they're the founder or an assistant. I ask that you participate because you have a perspective to share. That there's no criticism allowed, no judging of yourself or others. Avoid jargon. This is really interesting when you get into tech companies or anything in the scientific field. It's always fun. Speak like a 5th grader. So I had worked with this company. It was a tech company that was coming out with this is a long explanation, but something with neuroscience. And I was working with a scientist and an engineer that had a very difficult time describing things in a way that I could understand it. So that's why our meeting took an extremely long time. But it was because I had to keep asking questions to get him to say it in a way that I could understand it. Because I'm like, if you can't explain it to me, then you're not going to be able to explain it to the people you're trying to attract. So get them to speak like a fifth grader, get them to avoid jargon, ask them what things mean. Even if you understand what it means, but you know that not everyone else does, get clarification on what they mean. Respect the time box. I try to have a timeline that I stick with. Again, you can alter it as needed. No cell phones. I will call people out if they have cell phones. Have fun. I believe I added this in here. What's your vision for your business when it's completely finished? This was taken from the idea of the E-Myth. So if you guys have ever read the E-Myth, if you haven't, I highly suggest that book for your own business and for just to understand other people's businesses as well. But he had mentioned in there about building your business in a way that you're thinking of it when it's finally complete, if it's at its peak, if it's done what it should do in the world. What does that look like? A lot of times people build businesses to sell it. So if they are building it to sell, what does it look like before they sell it? How big is it? How many employees? What's the revenue? So this, I don't always ask this. It depends. And it depends if I had asked this in the sales meeting as well. If you guys have ever heard of the Dan Sullivan 3-year question that comes from Pricing Creativity by Blair Enns, he asks, in 3 years, you're very happy about what's happened personally and professionally in your life and your business. You're really happy about it. Can you tell me about what that is? And so you get the person to jump into the future, visualize this, and then tell you what they imagine. So I really try to get this vision, because sometimes you'll hear, oh, they wanted to franchise and they didn't tell you that in the sales meeting, or whatever it is. So you might want to ask this question again if you haven't already. When we go into, I'm just going to check was there anything, my chat's not showing up. Oh, there it is. Anything anybody wants to ask? I see, I will have a list of recommended resources. Yes, I need to work on that. And a book list too. What if they don't know their vision? I would question whether or not to work with them. They need to know something. So Gus asked this, if they don't know their vision. They need to know something of where they want to be, because otherwise this is what's going to happen. If they don't have an idea of even short term where they want to be, or they don't have a goal, then they're going to see every single dollar that comes out of their account as an expense, not as an investment, because we only invest in things where we know what the outcome is, or we not maybe know the outcome, or we hope for the outcome. So we invest in things that we hope will give us a return later on. So that's what's going to happen. If they don't have a goal, they don't have some kind of vision, something, then they will see everything as an expense. And that normally is what happens when we start attracting really low-end clients. They don't have a vision. They don't have a goal. And then they see everything as an expense. And they don't want to separate from their money. But then a business that has been successful, or a person that really does know how to do business, they will understand that they have to invest in order to get somewhere. And so they will see it as an investment. So that has to do with your own positioning too, the type of clients that you get in. But to really, I would question whether or not to work with someone. It doesn't mean they have to have a 3-year vision, but at least they have to have somewhere that they're aiming towards, that they want to be, that they're currently not at. So Ani has asked, have you ever worked with a charity or nonprofit where revenue isn't necessarily their biggest goal? Yes. So not necessarily a nonprofit, but businesses that put their mission over the profit. And that's totally fine. It's just that we have to measure, we have to have some way of measuring how they have made an impact. So that might be how many, if it's a charity, how many people have they helped? How much money have they raised? They need some way to measure their goal. So even if it's not in revenue, then that's totally fine. That revenue might not be their, hopefully it's not their main goal anyway, but that they actually put forth their mission in the world. But we need to know, well, what does that look like and how can we measure that? We will be going over how to qualify a potential client. Yes, that will be in the sales call for sure. Okay, I'm gonna hop back. So the next thing we go into, this is the thing that I start with. So people have asked, do you start with the user and the customer, or do you start with the brand? And there's different philosophies on that. I've tried both. I've tried some where I started with the brand, asking about who the brand is and nailing that down. Then I've started with who are you aiming at? So I landed on this. I landed on who are you trying to serve? Because if you don't have a customer, you're not aiming at that, then who cares who you are? Really? I mean, who cares who your brand is if you're not helping anybody, if you're not serving someone? So that's what my philosophy is. That doesn't mean you have to stick with it. You can try starting with the brand, starting with the user. But that's just my thought. I've done both, but it worked out fine. So the user revenue segmentation. So this is the 30,000 foot view that I start with. And what I'm trying to do here, if it's a new business, then you kind of have to use this as just a starting point. And this is really my note taking. Like, this is a structure for me to take notes. That's all it is. It's nothing special. It doesn't have to look pretty. My worksheets look horrible. But what you want to do with a new business, you want to find out who's their ideal client. So sometimes if it's a new business, I'll start here and I'll just ask them, who are you serving? Who are you aiming at? What's their problem? Just tell me, generally speaking, what we're talking about. And if I'm going for, or if I'm working with a rebrand, if I'm working with an already established company that has customers, I will ask them, who is your main customer and what percentage of your revenue comes from this customer? Or if it's charity, if that's fundraising, however you want to segment that. But we want to start grouping very large people, or not people, but like groups together, right? So we want to group people together. So we want to see who is their main customer and how can we identify them? How much of their revenue comes from this? So it might be 80% of their revenue comes from this one customer. Then we ask, who's the rest? Who's the 20%? Can you describe that to me? And then we ask, who do we want to get more of? Do we want to get more of this main customer? Do we like serving this customer? Is there a new way that we're trying to figure out how to serve them? Do we want to ditch this customer or just keep serving them but then open up a new market? So what's the idea? So you're trying to get an overview of what does their company look like? Who do they already attract? Do they want more of that customer? Do they want to open a different market? Do they want to serve this secondary customer? Say if it's the 20% left. Do we want more of this customer? Why don't we? And just have a conversation with them. So this is really all of this is to open up conversation and you, again, to surface insights. So you're trying to get your head wrapped around their business, who they're attracting, how they segment, and then who they want to go for. Maybe I've had clients who, hey, we're already attracting this main customer. We actually want more of them. And we not only want more of them, we want to serve them better. We want to create products that are better for them. We want to capitalize on our following. I've had one that he had 1.5 million followers on YouTube, but was only monetizing through sponsorship. Granted, he was making a ton through sponsorship, but he wanted to serve his audience better. So he's now making an e-course. He has a royalty-free music site, and it all came from, hey, we have this main customer, or main viewer that we actually just want to serve better, not opening up a separate market. So I spend a lot of time here because I want to make sure this is like finding the core foundational place you start from. Because if you get this wrong, everything's going to be wrong. So it's okay to spend a lot of time here until you fully wrap your head around where are they going? Where should they go? What is a good idea? And you can help them decide that while you're going through this, and ask them questions like, well, have you ever thought about serving this client better? Do you really want to go open up this new market? Is that a good idea? And you can question those things. You can ask them, what do they think about this? And once you all agree, yes, this is a good idea, we should go down this road, and you start getting an idea of who this type of customer is, then you move into a user persona. So not until you and the client feels comfortable with, okay, this is the one I think we should start with. Now, they might say there's like 5 different personas that they want to start with, or 5 different people, but we only have so much. If you go back to that idea of this, we only have so much energy, resources, and budget. Who do we want to focus on first? That doesn't mean we can't focus on others, but who do we want to focus on first? The other thing that I mention to my clients is I work with a lot of lifestyle brands. So I have them outline a persona that is more of like what I call the brand's best friend. So if you had the top evangelist ever client customer, come to your business and they sing your praises. They give you amazing Yelp reviews. They tell all their friends. They read all your emails. What is this person like? Tell me who you would absolutely love to work with. And a lot of times it ends up being that ideal client that they want to serve and they want more of, or maybe it's their main customer, that their ideal, that their main customer's ideal of who they want to be and who they want to become is this brand's best friend. And so if you've ever read any of my blogs about having only one user persona, it's this idealized version of the customer that I sometimes do. So I just want to go back to the chat really quick. Am I asking them questions, or are they doing an exercise on their own? They do nothing on their own. Everything is guided. So this is during a workshop. This is you facilitating. This is you asking questions. So I usually don't have anyone do anything on their own because they'll probably do it wrong. And you want to be the one that's asking questions. You want to be the one pulling things out of people. So think of yourself again as a facilitator. You are there to ask questions. You are there to pull out key information from the people that are in the room. And that's what really you're there for. Because otherwise, again, we go back to the idea of we might as well just send them a questionnaire. How do you start the conversation on the 30,000 foot view? After I've described what this whole thing strategy is, I said we're going to start with understanding who your client base is and who we need to start targeting and who you're serving, who you want to put all your energy at this moment into serving. And then I just open up into this and I say, tell me about your clients. Tell me about your customers. Where's your revenue segmented? If we were to segment all of your revenue, where does most of your revenue come from? What type of client? And go from there. Did you have a follow-up question? I heard someone jump on. No one? Okay. And okay, how do you get information from everyone in the meeting and not just the CEO? This is a learned skill. So at first, the CEO is going to feel very much entitled to be the one giving all the information, and it depends on personalities too. So you have to gauge this going in. But I will specifically call out people, and I will ask them, we've heard this from so-and-so, if that's the CEO, and that's wonderful. Always validate, always embrace what someone says, because nothing's a bad idea. We just won't use all of them, but always embrace what someone says and take it in and validate them. And then I call out people. I specifically call out and I said, I'd love to hear what so-and-so thinks. And so I actually will call out people, because I also say to everyone, I want to know what everyone's perspective is, because everyone's perspective is valuable. If you're sitting in the room, it's valuable. And so I keep reiterating that throughout the meeting. And so it is going to be a learned skill for you. If you haven't facilitated a meeting, you're going to have to learn how to manage people, strong personalities. You're going to have to learn how to, even the quiet ones too, you have to manage that too. And coming from being a shy person, like I was extremely shy, that I'm, breaking out of that, thank goodness. But I had to learn, how do I make everyone in the room feel very comfortable? And being more of an observer personality is good, because then I can, instead of getting wrapped up in something, I can actually look around the room and see, ooh, this person's checking out. This person's way too quiet. I need to call them out. Or the CEO is talking way too much and they need more validation, and then I need to call in someone else. So you'll get better and better at that as you start working more and more with people. And in the end, if you attract really great people with really good personalities, like I've had CEOs that go, hey, to their CMO, and they're like, hey, I want to hear what you say. Like, what do you think? Do you think that's a good idea? What do you think? And so they'll actually end up calling out other people. So hopefully if you attract amazing clients, they're going to be with you in that. So then I go into the user persona. So once I feel like everybody's on board, we all have a vision where we're headed down, we pick a user persona. And so that is the avatar. That's the brand's best friend, however you want to describe it. And I've tried tons of different ways of going about this. I've made multiple personas. Once in a great while, you have to make multiple personas, because the business model is built in a way that they get revenue streams from two different places, and one is dependent on the other. So for instance, we had one where with that tech company, we had to attract researchers to validate the app and the system. And then we had to get the public in on it, because there was a specific persona that we outlined, because they were the ones that were going to fund the project and they were the ones that were going to end up using it. But we had to have the researchers in order to even get the funding. So in that case, we had to do 2 different user personas. Like the business model was built on that. So in that case, you might have to. And you decide that as you go on. There might be an instance where you had to do 3. I don't know. I've only absolutely had to do 2. And that was because of that scenario. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think everything else, I was able to boil it down to just 1 avatar. A lot of other people will do 3 different avatars, like, oh, I don't know who we're going to attract. It's like, you know, you can narrow it down. I believe that you can narrow it down. You can prove me wrong later, it's fine. So we go over who they are. We name the person. So, you know, if it's whatever, we give them a name. It's really fun to do this too, because I had one of my clients, it was actually my cousin that I tested this thing on. I had him name the guy. And so he called him Justin, but we gave him like an avatar, Justin the Connector, because he's this guy that connects people and is big on community building. And so it was so funny after the whole strategy meeting and everything, he comes to me and he goes, I went to this conference the other day and everybody there was Justin the Connector. He was so excited because he could see that everyone fit into this avatar that we had laid out. And now he knew how to talk to them. He knew who they were and he knew where they hung out. So it's fun to give them a name or to a descriptor of some sort. So if it's like, you know, Jamie, the software engineer, or the tired mom, or whatever you want to name this person so that everyone has a good vision of what this person's like. And then I heard this from another strategist to give them a quote. So if there's something like, what would this person be known to say? And you might not know what this quote is until you've actually outlined the person, but it is a fun thing to outline. So I go over demographics, where they live, what their education is, marital status, occupation, all that stuff. A lot of clients are very hesitant on doing this. And if they are, and you cannot break through that wall, because some clients are very hesitant on boiling it down to 1 avatar, that's a discussion for another day, because that is really managing expectations and telling them how focusing, if you focus, you actually open yourself up to attract people, versus if you try to attract everyone, you're going to attract no one. So you'll learn how to communicate that as you try this out. But if they're really hesitant on the whole demographics thing, tread lightly on it. Fine, just keep going, because what's really important is more of the psychographics and the mindset. Is what do they believe in? What do they follow? Who do they read about? What magazines are they following? What gurus do they follow? Blogs and websites, books. Because you want to get into the head of these people. So yes, we want to know demographics to know where to get in front of them on, but if your client is very hesitant about that, then just go straight to the psychographics and figure out, who does this person follow? What are they like? Do they have any quirks? Do they listen to a certain comedian? Do they read certain books? Do they collect something? Are they known to drive a certain kind of car? You want to be able to picture this person and to be able to pull images of what they're like and what their life is like. If we were to make a mood board of this person, or what we call an empathy graph, could we, based off of your list, know what this person looks like? Could we guess at least? So this is really fun to do, and I can show you some examples of what I've done if that would help, and you'll see how horribly messy my templates are, or my worksheets. So this is one that was actually filled out with a client, and you'll see I have to keep making my text smaller and smaller because I had so much information. But this is from one of my workshops. This is actually the one that was on YouTube that I was telling you about, that had 1.5 million subscribers and wanted to figure out what to do with them. So this was the user segmentation. So it's not pretty. This is not pretty at all. This is just like me being able to take notes. And then the demographics. And as you're going through this, you might make some connections. You might ask them, like, does this really make sense? Should we actually be doing this? Because this is your way of processing information. This is your way of pulling it out and then processing it and say, ooh, should we really be doing this? What if we did this? This, talking over the psychographics, we even talked about partnerships, which was really awesome, because we started seeing, oh, this person actually buys, they're into natural supplements. So I'm like, well, what if we partnered with these different supplement companies to get your name out? And then we started coming up with ideas there. So you're using this not just to outline exactly what it says on here, but you're using this again to process the information, to come up with ideas, to talk over things with them. And you're going to get better and better at this the more that you do it too. And again, I really like asking, what's their mindset? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they frustrated? Again, what are their quirks? What's a distinguishing characteristic they have about them? And then, let your client talk. If they go off tangent a little bit, I mean, too much, so you want to hurt them back. But if they have something really interesting that they're sharing, mark it down, take note of it, and follow the golden nuggets. This is just meant as a framework. It's a guide. It is not a script. Do you talk about your ideas right in the workshop? I do. I want them to be excited in the workshop. Actually, it was really funny. I had suggested something in the workshop about something they had said, and they wanted to make, it was either baby clothes. It was for a yoga studio, and they wanted to start coming out with products. And one of them was, she said that she always puts her phone, oh, this is what it was. There was two things that happened. She always puts her phone out in the kitchen when she goes to bed. And then we were talking about potential products. I'm like, well, what if you had one of those charging stations that you lay your phone on, but it was a yoga mat? And it said, there was a tagline that she had from her business. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Like that thing we could just chat it about in the workshop. And she got so excited. So it's really good if you have those kind of ideas, like what if we did this? And what if we did this? You start making those connections, do it and show your thinking in the meeting, because it's going to get your client extremely excited about that. Then by the time they see it in the roadmap, they're going to be like, yes, this is what I wanted. Because in the roadmap, you can expand on it. You can show mock-ups. You can show potential references and ideas. So I would, yes, do that in the meeting. You might not want to go too far off tangent. Like if you keep going on with all these daydreams and brainstorming and you realize you didn't get through the framework, like don't do that. But as you make connections, yes, share them in the meeting. And there was another one that happened too. Do you start a time tracker for the exercises? I do. And that's why it's good to have an assistant with you, so they can be like, hey, we should be wrapping up in about 5 minutes. Because they can keep an eye on that. But yeah, I usually set a timer on my phone. And sometimes, if you're in the flow, just let things go. Ask if you can push lunch a little bit, or if you can get an extra hour at the end of the day. It really, really does help. There was another idea that came on with that yoga studio. And when I had made the connection, I'm like, what if you do this? And they both of the people that were in the meeting screamed. They were so excited. That's what you want. You want people so excited by the time they leave the strategy session that when they see the roadmap, it's just a confirmation of what they already heard, what they already saw in the strategy session. So you want to pull out all stops in the strategy session. The roadmap is just the supplement. It's like, okay, yeah, we're getting the supplement. We're getting the roadmap. That's cool. But you don't want to make it this grand reveal and put so much pressure on the roadmap. You want it all to happen and the excitement to happen in the meeting, and it'll make everyone feel good. I mean, you'll walk away from that so excited, and so will your client, and they will sing your praises from that day forward. So then we have the who they are. That's the user persona. Again, typically I only do one unless I have to do more. What do they want? This is what I altered. I altered this a lot from what I remember from core. So if you have taken core from the future and you went through I don't know what it was, pains, gains, challenges, all that, it did not make sense to me whatsoever. So I changed it after listening to a Tim Ferriss talk, which on something completely different. I'm like, that's so perfect for me to do for strategy. So we want to figure out, why does this brand even exist for this customer? So this is all about the customer. This is about their problems and goals. And this is what I do to streamline it, because this can take forever. So what I do is I start with just these two columns, problems and goals. If the company wants to focus on solving a problem first, and they're more of like a lot of tech startups are like this too. They're filling a need, they're filling a gap. We start with a problem. I say, okay, what's the biggest problem you're solving for your customer? Let's put that down. Okay, cool. What's a goal that this problem is getting in the way of. Because for every problem, there's a goal. For every goal, there's a problem. So you can start either way. You can start with a goal, or you can start with a problem. But either way, we can say the opposite of the other. If it's a lifestyle brand, typically we're going to start with goals, because it's more of like, I want to have this ideal version of myself. I want to live a certain kind of life. And then we say, okay, what are their problems they're having in achieving that goal? So that's how I approach it, depending on what type of company it is. And I will have them go through, give me 3 problems, and I list them. This is problem 1, problem 2, problem 3. Give me the opposite. What's a goal that's the opposite of that problem? 1, 2, 3, or I start with the goals. So I have 3 of them. Then I have them prioritize, and I say, okay, if we were to just concentrate on one goal or one problem, what that you want to solve for them, what would it be? And they usually pick one. Then I start filling out the rest of this. So if that customer does not solve that problem or does not reach that goal, what is at risk for them? Could they lose their job? Could they get depression? What would happen? Because we want to know that this is really a problem we're solving. What is your solution? So I just want to make sure, I'm going to get in the chat really quick. Sorry, I just want to make sure. Okay. Solution. So what is your solution to that problem? So why does your business exist? How does this actually line up with your client's biggest problem or biggest goal? And then objection and role to the sale. So a lot of times their customer is going to have an objection of why they shouldn't go with this client. And so you want to know, what are those objections? And I usually just write, like when I fill this out, I'll say, oh, for objection, I'll be like, you're too expensive. And I'm like, okay, cool. So what's your answer back to them? Like, why are you not too expensive? How would you address this? And then they tell me why. And that way, a lot of this is going to be the baseline for your messaging and for, a lot of your client experience, and everything is going to come from here. And then the role in the purchasing process. So do they have to check with their partner? Do they have to check with their parents about purchasing this? Do they have to check with the other decision makers in their company? Who's going to be influencing this sale? So that has really helped me. And then I actually deviated from this slightly, and I developed an entire client journey based off this, because we realized the 3 different goals they had were actually different. As you got deeper in the funnel, they had different problems and they had different goals. And so I used this at one point in my last strategy session as a way to develop their funnel and their client experience and how the client interacts with their brand. I have another exercise for that, but it just worked. So again, I use this as a baseline, and I just went with it. Like, you go with the conversation, and what you're doing is you're extracting all this information. You have all this random information, and you're trying to put it into buckets, and you're trying to organize it. So if your brain hopefully works like an org chart, like that's how you understand the world, then strategy is really good for you, or really good for you to be doing for clients, because you're constantly trying to make sense of the world, and you're constantly trying to put it in a place where it's supposed to be. So as you work through this framework, you're going to start altering it. You're going to start using it in a different way on the fly. And that is awesome. I would highly suggest that you do that, because it'll just work for you if you do it that way. If you try to force it and you try to just go through each of these things how I'm laying them out, it's not gonna work. You need to do what's good for you. Any questions on that? I know the chat's like blowing up here. The A was for answer in the objections column. So O was for the objection of what the customer would say. The A was what's my client's answer back to them. What did you want to see? Chloe, do you want to hop on and let me know what was it that you wanted to see?
Yeah, you just spoke really briefly about having a sort of hybrid customer journey, and sounds like the needs assessment bit of your of the strategy session. So I was wondering if you could see what that looked like.
Yeah, I'll show you that, and then I'm going to show you the other way to do the client journey, because there's a few different ways of doing that. So thanks for clarifying that. This is a client journey. This is what happened. This is the actual example of how the funnel, the client journey got made from this. I didn't expect it. So as we were going through this, we realized that one of the biggest problems was issues sleeping. But my client's like, I don't want to just help people with their meditation to sleep. Like, I want to help them with deeper core things of life. I'm like, okay, well, let's keep talking. So as he was talking, this was the first one. So the issue sleeping, and how does he help them? He actually helps them by giving them sleep meditations. So their goal was they want to go to sleep. And he had 1 million plus subscribers there. So I said, okay, well, what's the other problem you want to help them with? Well, they haven't been able to quiet their mind, and they're running a household. They're really busy, but so it's not just sleeping anymore. They're now expanding into their daily life, and they want peace of mind. So I was like, okay, well, what if that's the next phase? Like they come to you on YouTube because they want to sleep, but then they realize, oh, actually, I want peaceful mind like all the time. What if they hop on your email list then? So when their goal is that they want a peaceful mind, they hop on your email list. And that's what happened. This just formed itself as we were talking. So then the next phase was hop on the email list. And then he's like, well, what I really want to do, like at my core, I want to help people improve their life in general. And I want to help them achieve their goals. I want to help them once they're out of survival mode to actually thrive. And I'm like, okay, great. So that's where your e-course comes in. And they actually want to be fulfilled. And that was something that he could help them address at a deeper level, but not necessarily in his YouTube, because that would be it's like way too heavy to be talking about in the YouTube channel, because where he's really getting all the subscribers is from the sleep meditation. So that is how we developed this funnel that happened. And it literally just it was like it was supposed to happen, because I did not mean for this to happen. I was going to go through my normal client journey thing and get this all mapped out, but it literally just happened like this. So I hope this was helpful. Any other questions regarding this before we move on to the actual client journey? I see Zuni said, would you suggest to separate the personas in male or female, or would you combine them in needs to one persona? It depends. I would just go with the flow to see what the clients say, because some of them are very hesitant to pick one, and that's okay. But some are very adamant that they are. So I had a client who created, and you'll see this example later on, cork purses. And so in hers, she actually had purses for women, and then she made belts for men. So she did want to differentiate the two, because she'd be talking to them in a different way. Because a lot of times you will use different language depending on who you're talking to, but it all depends on the client. So I would say normally, yes, you would, but again, it depends on the client. You said you'd miss this, but how much does your entire session take? Anywhere between 1 to 2 days. I've done it as short as 4 to 6 hours. I've done it as long as 12 hours. And that was over the course of breaking it up, like 3 different meetings. And then from beginning to end, so the $10,000 strategy is 4 weeks. So by the time from doing the workshop is a 2-day thing, then I'd refine it, and you'll see this more next week. I refine the document, and I meet with them the next week for about a half hour to an hour. I refine the document more and meet with them again for another hour, half hour, and then I deliver the roadmap at the very end of the 4 weeks. And so it does take 4 weeks, roughly 40 hours, could be 20 to 40 hours, depending of that entire thing. That's just me. And I know I've been told I need to charge more, because, that's a lot. Anyway.
Amanda, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
This is super practical, but even as you're presenting this to us, you're like going in and typing in into your keynote presentation. So if we're in a room, if we're in an office space together, and you're actually presenting this, are you showing it to them the same way you're showing it to us, or do you have it in some sort of presentation mode where you're not?
I literally show them what I'm showing you. It is so not fancy. I've had other people that design these way better, and then it actually is a better presentation when you're talking with clients. I found that clients don't care. Like they really don't. They really don't care. Some clients don't want to look at it because it overwhelms them. And so that's fine. I just tell them I'll be typing, or my assistant will be typing. So just be aware of that. Other times we again use I'll show you. We use the whiteboard a lot too, if we're trying to like we were trying to figure out, this is for the priorities we'll get to. But I use the whiteboard a lot, and really like clients don't care. They really only care about the result. So yeah, good question though.
Great, thanks.
So we'll hop into the client journey. So this is the actual client journey. If you don't if you don't get a happy accident out of this, then you have other ways that you can get a client journey. So I describe it as, from awareness to advocacy, how your ideal client finds you, why they trust you, and ultimately why they like you enough to share. So remember how we wanted to delight the customers, that if we delight them enough in the relationship, that they will actually end up sharing, and then it will be a self-feeding funnel. And then you don't have to spend as much money on marketing and advertising because you have advocates that talk about you. So we want to know, should we concentrate on raising awareness, strengthening the relationship with the already existing customer? Where do we need to put our efforts? If it's a new brand or if it's a new market you're trying to get into, your clients are trying to get into, you might actually have to build the entire funnel, and it's a hypothesis that you're going to be testing later, but at least you'll get that down. Other times we do have situations where we just want to concentrate on awareness, that we want to feed the top of the funnel because everything else is perfect and stellar. We just don't have enough coming in. We don't have enough leads coming in. So you've probably by now, you've figured out in this workshop with your client what you need to focus on. The 5 steps, so I always go back to like matchmaking and relationships, and this is how my brain sees it. Step 1, you first meet. That's awareness. Step 2, you're kind of trying to see if you trust this person. It's like dating. Step 3, engagement. Step 4 is marriage, the relationship. Step 5 is children. It's kind of just how my brain works. So then I go to awareness is step 1, consideration, that's like dating, conversion, that's engagement or marriage, whatever. Relationship, I see that as marriage. And then advocacy, that's where, it multiplies and you want more people coming into the funnel. So that's how I explain it to my clients too. And it seems to resonate pretty well. If you're only looking to increase awareness, this is kind of a fun exercise. This is super ugly, but it works. Just an awareness. So just getting people aware of the business. So that's like getting the social platforms growing. You want to get into the customer's life. So what I do is I draw a line. I say, okay, we're going to map out your customer's day from when they wake up to when they go to bed. And we just want to talk about what does their day look like? Let's talk about their activities, their feelings, their thoughts. You're going to see how really gross and messy this can look, but it works. I'll show you an actual example. So don't laugh. So this is literally me taking notes on this. So we talked about this client's customer when they wake up. What do? They check their phone. What do they check? What platforms do they check? Are they texting someone? How do they feel? Oh, they're tired. Good to know. So what we're doing is we want to just get in this person's brain. We want to get into their world. We want to understand them. We want to know, what do they say? Do they yell at their kids? What peanut butter do they grab off the shelf? Anything. Like, do they drink water in the morning? What do they drink it out of? The whole thing. Because what we want to do is figure out, how do we insert the brand into this person's life? So especially because, again, I work with lifestyle brands, so I'm looking to infiltrate people's lives. It might be a little different if you're working with an app, because they literally would only be finding it on their phone, or they might be told about it, or they might see a commercial or something like that. So it depends on how deep you want to go here, but because I want to help shape lifestyles, I go deep. And I go through this. I know that Farm Design, if you guys follow Farm Design, they do this exercise too. And they'll go through the whole timeline of this person's day. I know a couple other agencies do this too. Like, they map out the clock and they just go in a circle of what is this person doing throughout the day, so that you can figure out, how can you get in their way? At what time of day do you need to do this? And how will they find out about you? So it's a really good exercise to do this. If it's awareness, I found that very helpful. This is another one. This is very deep. This is the whole thing. If you need to map out what the entire customer experience is. So this is getting into an overview of marketing, but it's okay. So you want to, this is like the umbrella view. And then what's really cool is if you have this column mapped out in the roadmap, and you'll see how I translate that next week. Because it won't look like this in the roadmap. You're going to synthesize this and make it a lot more digestible in the roadmap. But you could give this awareness portion, let's say, to whoever's manning social media for them, if that's where their awareness is coming in, and say, hey, this is our strategy to get people. This is the overarching strategy. We need you to make an actual like strategy of what you're going to do to get there. But it gives people an overview of what that is. So what you want to do is, how do they find out about you? So you go through this with your client. What are they doing? What are they thinking? What are they seeing? What are they feeling? And again, I'll show you how to translate this later. But you go through each column at each time when they're considering purchasing this or hiring this client. What is this customer doing, thinking, seeing, feeling? There's no right or wrong in this. Again, there's no right or wrong in any of this. Just take notes, do your best. You're going to try this out with your partner too. You're going to do that all the way to advocacy. Sometimes we don't know why people are going to share. We might take our best guess. Later, I sometimes don't even fill this out, and I say, client, we're going to have to figure out what is so great about you that people actually talk about to say the advocacy part. So they're usually fine with that. But this gives us an overview of, what does this look like? What is this whole relationship between the brand and the customer from beginning to end supposed to look like? This is amazing, because if you get hired for just a logo, or people think, oh, we're just going to have a logo out of this, then they realize they have to mold this entire relationship with their client. This is where all the good stuff comes. This is like where, oh, we should have packaging and we should have it say this because it's going to help with the relationship. And we also need to make sure that our website does this because they're going to be considering a bunch of other options at this time, or whatever it is. This is where the client journey and the goals, these two things are where all of those extra projects come in. That's where the events come in that you can start planning. That's where the products and the packaging and the marketing materials, the fun stuff, the stuff we live for that we wish people would hire us for. That's what comes from all of this. So between if you end up doing this awareness exercise and this, all the good stuff's coming from here. And that's where your client's going to get really excited. That's where you can start talking about, do they need an email list? Because if, the conversion is not just purchasing, it's like maybe they need to hop on an email list. Maybe you need to nurture that relationship. It's really good if you guys have an idea of how business works, if you guys can start reading more books on business. If you can start your own business on the side, like a product business, I highly recommend that, because then you will also realize what it's like to be a client and all that stuff. And just understanding how businesses work and how clients are actually converted. How are you converted? If you don't know much about businesses, walk through your own journey. Chris taught me this, one of our first calls together. He said, think back at the one product or service that you have been an advocate for, that you loved. I tell this to my clients too. And I said, map out your journey. How did you become aware of them? Why did you consider them? Who else were you comparing them with? Why did you convert? What was that experience like? What was your relationship like? Did they send you a ton of emails? Did somebody call you? What was that did you end up having results because you used them? And why did you end up sharing, and with who? So think of your own relationship with a brand and how that went. And I tell my clients that too. I said, if you're having a hard time with this, think back at your own journey with a business that you loved. And then let's make one for your clients too. So Brittany's asking, how can you show a client example, or can you show a client example of how the blank user journey slide looks with doing? Yes, I can. And again, they're really messy, so I'm sorry. I didn't do it with this one. I'm going to see. And I didn't do it with Jason because that one was the happy accident. So I did it with her. So this is Paula. This is the cork purse designer. So awareness, we were just talking about, what is she doing? What is this customer doing before they found you? Are they right before they found you? Are they looking on Instagram? So this one is, they're looking on Instagram. She follows a friend of a stylist. So we realized, we got to think about connecting with stylists. She might have seen her at a pop-up shop. Oh, Paula has to do pop-up shops. That means there's going to be a ton of design that's going to happen there. What are they thinking? The customer is inspired. She's thinking, I wonder how this feels, because cork, people think, oh, it's rough, and they don't realize that it's actually really, really, really soft and smooth. How does it work? Is it a wine cork? They don't really understand. What are they seeing? So again, they're going to become aware of her on Instagram. And then what are they feeling? Inspired, intrigued, desire to know, and want to learn more or own it. Again, I'm going to show you what this looks like later when it's been translated, because this is awesome when you can pair it with messaging at each stage of the funnel and show, if they were to hire a copywriter, how would they talk when they're trying to attract someone? How do they talk in the relationship? How do they talk when they're trying to convert someone? So you'll see what that actually turns into later. Zuni's asking customer journey, how it should be as a best case in the future, or how it's today. Best case. So again, we're trying to map out, how do we attract that ideal client? So this is a hypothesis. Now you can ask them, what does it look like today in comparison? But I would focus on where you're going, not where you are, because obviously where they are isn't working. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hired you. So you might want to ask them what's going on right now, but I tend to not focus on that, because then we're just patching holes, and it's like, obviously this isn't working. So why don't we just trash it? Because this is, when they're investing this much money into strategy, it's high risk and high value. That means they're willing to shed what they have, and they're willing to either start over or do a major overhaul. So I try not to stick too close to what they're doing, because again, if it was working, they would just patch up a few holes and go on their way, but it's not. So I try to reimagine this whole experience and make the ideal experience in these journeys. Any questions on that? This is a lot, but it'll become so much more clear once you guys actually practice it. Before I go on, because we're going to go to the brand. We are going to go over time, so I apologize if any of you have to jump out of here. You'll have the recording though. Okay, I'm going to go on to, we had customer journey. So now we go into the brand. So we have brand and then priorities after that. Brand is a lot easier than the customer. I use this, this quote that people from Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And the most valuable companies know their story, they know why they exist, and over time, what and how they do might change, but usually their why does not, if they stick with that core, their core why. Because their core why normally comes from, I never read Start With Why, by the way, either, but their core why normally comes from something from childhood, like at the founder, if they're very passionate about their mission. The story is coming from something that's happened, something they're very passionate about, something that really is a core of who they are. So we want to find that out. That's why that doesn't really change, because it's in the past. Something's happened in the past and they're very, very, very passionate about it. Might not be with everyone, but for people who are very connected with their mission, it usually is. So I asked them why. I just asked them, like, how did this all get started? When did you first come about this? I also asked them the question of, where are you from? Where are you born? How did you end up here? So I like to contrast things a lot. So I ask, where were you? As in, like, where were you born? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Where are you now? What was your mindset previously? Where is your mindset now? So I ask very contrasting questions so that I can really find, where was that pivotal point? Where was that mindset shift? Where was that big golden nugget, so I can find it? So using those questions, polaring questions, really help. So I get their story. I get them to just give me everything of their story. So it looks really, really ugly. So it'll end up looking like that. So they tell me everything. A lot of times too, they'll tell me very personal stories. So things that, gosh, like horrible things that have happened in their childhood, but what shaped who they are. Doesn't mean we're going to use it in the brand like what's going to be facing in the brand, but it really helps for me to understand what's going on and what's driving them, and to maybe connect, there might be something I can connect for them based off that knowledge. The prompting, yeah, be great if some of the prompting questions were in the document. Yes, I can. Let me make note of that. I'm going to put that. I'll probably put any extra notes in reds because you guys can go in and delete them. But yes, I can do that. And then let me just add that. Thank you for that comment. How they do it. So this is like, how do they implement this? In what way? Think of like how, this is the only thing that's coming to mind right now, but how Chick-fil-A, how they're trained to give you the food with a smile on their face and how they're very polite. That is how they do something. So how is really embedded into the processes of a business. The customer service is a how. In what way, through what emotion, what are they concentrating on when they're doing this process? Is it through love? Is it through concern? Is it empathetic? Just get them to talk. They'll figure it out. Like, again, this is just prompts. What do you offer? Like, literally, what are the services and products that you offer that are connected in how you do it to why you do it? So this should all be in alignment. Who, we've already talked about who. I just like to button it up and be like, okay, if we were just to name this person really quick, or we were to just know who this is, how could we describe them? It just is a nice way to do that. Sometimes, things get uncovered when you're going through this stuff. Sometimes they realize like, ooh, maybe we're not targeting the right person. That's fine. You've uncovered that. That's great. Another thing I like asking, I learned this from Aaron at Farm Design. He asks his clients, what annoys you or what do you dislike or hate? Because sometimes we get very bland questions or very bland answers from our clients. And they're just like, they're void of emotion and excitement. And sometimes if we ask them what they hate, we can get a good answer from them as it pertains to what they do. So I asked the yoga studio founder, I asked her, what do you hate? And she's like, people are always on their phones. I hate that. Like, I was just teaching a class and these kids were on their phone. And so that's why we were thinking of like, what if we had that charging station that was the yoga mat? And so you might come up with ideas based on this, but you will trigger an emotional response. And that's what you want. You want to trigger emotional responses, because otherwise brands are really boring. That also helps too in this brand attributes. This exercise, I've heard it's suggested that you go through and just ask them to give out words that list these things, these attributes. And then you go through and you prioritize and all this. I don't do that. I don't do any of that. What I do is I go to the column and I say, can you just describe to me what is your culture like of your business? What's the personality? Like, what if someone were to walk into your office, if you were to have an office, what would it be like? Tell me a story. What does that look like? What's your ideal? And I get them to tell me a story. I do not get them to yell out words because those are boring. And what I do is I will get them to tell me stories, and I will pick out words and I will list the words here. Because if you start asking them like, tell me words that describe your brand, I've done that and it's been okay. But usually people aren't good at vocabulary, and they don't have a good vocabulary. That's what they hired you for. They can't communicate. So you need to just hear how they talk, and you need to pick out key words, and then maybe you find another word. Have your assistant look up on the thesaurus a better word. And then I'll start listing out words that I hear because they're in their storytelling that they tell me. Then we talk about their ideal customer. We've already talked so much about their ideal customer. We should have an idea of what they're like. So maybe I might ask them to just throw out some words, tell me a story, any of that. Just get your client to talk and pick out what's most important and put that down. And then the voice and tone. So how do they sound? What do they sound towards other people? What's the personality? We've already kind of talked about personality, but how does it come out in voice? The look and the feel. What do they imagine their brand to look like? Is there any other brands that exemplify that, or that they have that same feeling of the value and the benefit? What's the tangible impact that they have on others? And then the X factor is what sets you apart. So even if another brand gave the same benefit, like if there was another brand, like my client Jason, if there was another brand that did sleep meditation and helped someone go to sleep, what does Jason do that's different? What's Jason's X factor that makes him completely set apart from that? So you'll end up with a bunch of words, and I'll show you what that looks like. And I'll go back to the chat in just a moment. So Jason's was, so all these words. And then I go back through the very end. Once I have everything filled out, we do go through and we pick one. So you want to pick one attribute from each. just so it boils it down so you have a better idea of who the brand is and your client does as well. Let me check the chat really quick. So I know Grant had asked, there is a competitor element and it's coming up. So we will talk about that in a moment. And then if breaking this up over a long period of time, like 90-minute sessions, I wouldn't do 90 minutes, that's really short. I would do longer than 90 minutes. Gosh, 2 hours is probably the shortest I've ever done it, but that's even crunching it. I don't know yet. I'd have to think about that answer. What would be a story they would tell you as a client? I would answer with attributes here. So you can test it out. So I have done both where I asked a story. I've also asked them to list out words. It's just that the words are so boring. Like I asked the CEO he looked at the list and he's like, I can't do that. It's too overwhelming. So he didn't want to give me words. And I'm like, okay. And I had to think on the fly, how am I going to get brand attributes out of this guy if he doesn't want to do the exercise? So then I thought, well, I'll just ask him a story. So that's when I asked him, what is your culture? Tell me an example of your culture. And I thought, like, what's an example? Like, tell me about the relationship you have with the employees that you hire. Like, what kind of a family do you want this to be, this business? And then he went off. He's like, this is what I imagine it to be like. And I say, okay, well, if you were to have your ideal customer, like what's like some key words that you think of? Do you have an example of that? And so I'll ask them, give me an example. The more examples you can get from your clients, the better. So either a story, an example, that really helps. When all else fails, if you cannot think of a question to ask them, just go through and have them list words. It's fine. You'll figure it out. Okay, I'm going to go back to this because otherwise I'll be never ending this. We can go back and if you have really deep questions in brand attributes, let's go over them in the Q&A. So mark down your questions. If I don't answer them in this call, I will in the Q&As. This is something I took from someone in the pro group had showed this in the Future Pro group. So this is a gauge. You can move this over. Just gauging their aesthetics. So if you were to ask the client, are you classic or modern? Then I ask them, once they say like, oh, I'm more classic, I'm like, cool, what does that mean? And tell me what that means. And so they give me examples and they're like, oh, well, classic to me means black and white. And it means that I asked actually for brand examples too. That's why over here it says brands or examples that embody that quality. I'm trying to figure out, what do they mean by that? Because we might have completely different thoughts on what that means. Economical versus luxurious. They pick luxurious. I'm like, cool. What does that mean to you? What is luxurious? What are brands that embody this? It's just so that I can, again, it's just another point for me to understand my client and what they want. And then I list out brands over here. So you just list out the brands there. And then I take notes like examples here of what classic is versus modern or economical versus luxurious. Like I'll just take this and I'll copy it. And then just so that I myself know what they're talking about. The PowerPoint, you guys, I'm planning on making one for PowerPoint. So it may come later. So I have the keynote done. You'll get this. I'll give you a PDF too, but sorry, you're gonna have to wait a little bit for the PowerPoint. Archetypes, this was taken from Sparkle. If you go to Sparkle, you'll see all these archetypes. I don't know about copyright issues here. I probably should have my own illustrations here. That'll happen. So FYI for you guys too. This archetypes, I have them pick 3 archetypes, one that they identify very strongly with, one that they're like, yeah, kind of, and then one that they're like, yes, that's kind of us, but not fully. I mix 3 archetypes together to understand them. And you'll see what that looks like in the roadmap. Sometimes I skip this. I don't always see this as necessary. Some people think archetypes are like the thing to do in branding. It's up to you. So that's how I do it. You'll see how I translate that later. Competitors. So what I have them do, I try to only go for 3 to 5 competitors, or for them to tell me 3 to 5. So who the competitor is, where I can find them, so links. What does the competitor do really, really well? And what do you do better? I know that Seth Godin has a way in his This Is Marketing book in positioning, like writing the X and Y chart, and then plotting where the competitors are, and then finding where the position is for this brand or for your client, where they should be in comparison to everybody else. So that's a positioning exercise. That's a really good exercise. I don't personally do it in this because it's like it's happening in my head, but that might be a really good exercise for you to look into. So again, it's in This Is Marketing. It's a positioning exercise that he talks about. But then this is how I do it is, what does your competitor do? What do they do really well? And what do you do better? So I'm trying to figure out like what gap is my client filling that the competitors are not. And usually through this discussion, I'm able to figure it out. And so it works better for me than doing that other chart. The other thing that I've heard people do is using not using a, but using the. So if I were to call myself, I'm a brand strategist. Okay, that does not position me whatsoever. But if I said I am the brand strategist, well, I can't really say that because there's a ton of brand strategists. So what can I say that I am the only thing at doing this? So if you've heard the onlyness statement, people talk about that in positioning. We'll talk about that more in the roadmap. But how can you figure out what this brand does that nobody else does, that they can claim the? So I was thinking in my own positioning for myself, I am, which might sound really silly, but I am the future's first case study. So nobody can claim that spot. Nobody. I am the Melinda Livesey. Like I claim a spot in the market that nobody else can. And that's what you want to do for your clients. You want to help them find what's that one place in the market that they can possess that no one else can. That's what you want to do. The other thing, sometimes I ask, what do you want to be known for? So it's that thing. I just ask these questions again, just to get my client talking, to surface more information and insights. Sometimes I ask this, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I will already know the answer by that time. I'm going to check the chat really quick. We have one more section to go through. Sorry, we're running late. If you have any pressing questions that you're super, super confused at, tell me now, or we're going to move on to priorities. Anyone? Okay, cool. I'm going to jump in. And again, we can go over anything deeper in Q&A. Priorities. This is straight from Core, I think. I just want to say I don't really use this, but I wanted to show you this anyway. So what happens is priorities and goals. You've already uncovered everything about the brand. You've already uncovered literally everything about the customer. Now we need to plot all of those little things that are going to happen to connect the two. So what I tend to do is I look back, and you're doing this with the client. I tend to look back at the user journey that we talked about. And I say, hey, I noticed that, we have to do YouTube. Like we have to put some energy into that. We also, you have a website. Maybe it's a website here. You actually have to start an email list. You have to do packaging too, and maybe some information, maybe some social media posts. So we start listing those initiatives. A lot of times people that come to me for brand identity, so they'll list out those initiatives. So I'm going to show you an actual, I think I did it with him. I'll see what I did, because sometimes I changed up stuff. So I did. Brand identity, we just start brainstorming. What are all those things that we need to do to connect the brand to the user? Websites. YouTube channel stuff, email marketing, landing pages. Some of the stuff I don't do. I had someone list on here that they had to book a TED Talk that they were going to do. I'm like, I have nothing to do with that. But there's some of these things, like you are helping them goal set, essentially, how to get their brand to their ideal client. So that's why some of this stuff's going to have nothing to do with you, and that is totally okay. And then you can help them figure out how are they going to get that done. So then we go back to, so you have this list, you've brainstormed with them. Then what you're trying to do is prioritize what should they put most their effort into. So the term is, usually it's, I believe, what is it? Right away, like priority, then 3 months, then a year, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. You can decide what the term is, but that's usually like time frame term. What's the impact? What's the difficulty? And then add that up, and then you can talk about budget. We might have to talk about this, how you uncover budget in the how to sell portion. It's a big conversation that I don't want to talk about here. So what you do is you write down the initiative, let's say brand identity, and then you rate it from 1 to 10. You ask your client, how much of an impact would this have in attracting your ideal client or making sales? Or usually it is to increase awareness, revenue, or efficiency. How much of an impact will that make? And you have them rate it from 1 to 10. So let's say they're like, oh, we have to have that. It would be 10. But how difficult is that given your budget and your timeline? Is this really difficult to do? And then it is, but it needs to be done. So let's say it's a 9. Total is 19. And so then what you're going to do is, it's a way to figure out where to put your efforts and what to do first. So you'll see here, we had some 20s that we had to work on first. We had one that was an 18. So the YouTube channel, get that set. We had some website stuff. So really you're just helping them prioritize their goals. I found this to be extremely confusing. I'm even getting confused telling it to you. So this is how I do it now. Yeah, doability makes more sense. I was trying to think because I have another way of doing goals that I use the word difficult. So whatever, you could flip out doable and difficult. That's fine. And yeah, if you guys have to bounce, that's totally fine. We're almost done. You can probably catch the end of the replay when I put it up. Okay, so this is what I do. Let me make a copy of this while we're here so you don't get totally confused. So what I do, and I use this thing a lot. So you saw this similar in the awareness portion. I say, you're here, okay? You want to be here. So let's say that the client right now, let's say we're working with a client, and this is how I do priorities. I sometimes do this on a whiteboard too. You're here. We want to be done, let's say end of the year. We want to be somewhere at the end of the year. And I usually ask them, usually it's 3 months I help them plot out, just so it's a short time frame that we can check in after those 3 months. So we'll say end of the year, we'll just say 3 months from now. And I ask them, where are you, currently, where are you at? Do you have what are we looking at? Actually, I won't ask them that first. I'll ask them 3 months. I'll be like, where do you want to be? They're like, okay, we want 1 million subs. We want on YouTube, we want 10,000 email subs. We go back to that goal list. Remember that goal list that we talked about? We're going to start filling that in here with very specific things that we want. We want donations. I don't know, X number of donations. Whatever they want. They want a brand that actually looks professional. That can go here. Whatever their vision was for those 3 months, put that right here. Then we're going to reverse engineer everything. Then we say, cool, where are you in comparison right now? And they're like, oh, well, we only have 100 subs and we only have 1,000 email subscribers and we have 0 donations, if that's what they're going for. And then we start putting milestones. So we're like, okay, so we're at month 1. Month 2. And then I start actually making this 3-month thing that I break down into sections and I reverse engineer. So I'm like, cool. Well, based off of what we know, some of the things that we know from the client experience, we're going to have to work on getting you an email service. So email provider, whatever that is. We have to get you one of those. And then we start listing out all of the things that they need. So this is our reverse engineering of that one client. So we knew we had to do brand identity. So I actually did both. I did that list of priorities. And then I'm like, gosh, I need to see this in a timeline. So I worked on the timeline with them in the meeting. A lot of times I will do this, as you saw here, I will do this on a whiteboard. So that's all I come in with is, where you are, you're here. This is where you want to be. I draw a line and then I start dividing it and start plugging in what we need to do to get here. So that's simple. That's exactly the framework. It's like, you are here, you want to be here. What do we have to do to get there? And I will then it ends up looking like this crazy timeline that I'll show you how to synthesize this in the roadmap. But I just wanted to give you 2 different options of what you could do, or you could use both like I have, where you can list out all of the initiatives that they need to take to increase awareness, revenue, and efficiency, or get to that main goal that you had outlined. And or you can use this timeline thing. I have found this extremely helpful because not only am I talking about priorities, I'm talking about when are they going to do each of these things, who they might need to hire. Like I said, get web designers, and I actually ended up referring them to someone. So I knew, I need to actually send them that email right now, or later they're going to have to do copywriting. Well, they know then they don't have to start that process until month 2. So this just helped me reverse engineer the whole process with them. And then I gave them a list that was cleaned up way better. But as you see, like, this doesn't have to be fancy. All you need is a simple framework and then know how to think on the spot, and you can work through it. The last thing I want to show, so priorities is a really hard one. If we need to go deeper in the Q&A, we can. The schedule, I usually show them, hey, this is what you're going to expect for the next few weeks. And I always, always, always give them the next steps. So I always give them what to expect next, what the schedule is. I do a follow-up after the meeting. I typically say that this is available to them because sometimes they want to see the notes, but it's not something I necessarily give them unless they request it, just because it's very overwhelming and there's a lot of information here. So I always give them a schedule of what they can expect coming up. And then sometimes I fill in next steps like, I need to send you that web designer or something. Always let them be prepared for the next thing, because if they feel like they're floating in the abyss, they're going to start trying to take control. And you never want that. You always want to be the person that's in control, that you're controlling the client experience. You don't want them to think, they don't know what they're doing, so I have to step in. That's what happened when you were an order taker. We don't want that now. I know that was like totally I probably hit you with a fire hose right now, but I want to hear from you really quick. What are your feedback, your quick questions, if we can answer them here, but we will answer more in the Q&A. So anything quick, someone wants to jump in. You guys are so silent right now. I hope I didn't
I'll jump in.
Sure, go for it.
Hey, a long time ago, we were touching base on like the 30-foot perspective or the 30-foot framework that you mentioned that we'd spend a lot of time on, and we'd want to really have the client really engage with. And you mentioned the words synthesize and summarize, like when you're talking with tech companies, and they're throwing out jargon and explanations that you have no idea how to understand. You throw it back at them in a summary type of perspective to affirm that you have received it. Now, that is sort of similar to my approach, whereas like I'll rephrase their inputs as a yes or no question. Like I'll ask them, so is this how you're explaining the concept to me? And I'll ask them in a yes or no question. That in the past has backfired on me. That only happens, I would say, like 10 to 20% of the time. Most of the time that works. But in the 10 or 20%, the response is, I asked too many questions. So whenever you ask those questions, those yes or no questions, or those synthesize or summarize questions, do you format it in a specific way that doesn't seem like you're asking too many questions, or is there a better way, or is there a method to the madness in that perspective?
Yeah, so you've done workshops before where a client you've asked that question or a yes or no question, and they pushed back on you.
Yes.
And said you asked too many questions.
Yes.
Very interesting. I'm curious, I don't know the answer to this.
Sure.
Were their expectations managed to know what to expect coming into this? Because all it is essentially is a bunch of questions, like a lot of questions. So were they prepared for that?
They were prepared to come on a call with me and explain what they need and when they need it by. Thinking about said clients, there was a lot going on. There was multiple calls happening with said client, and so they probably just wanted to, they were probably expecting to jump on a quick 10-minute call and jump off. And
Okay.
So they weren't expecting like a minimum of a half-hour conversation, just so I can engage their goals and engage what they need out of it was a motion design project, like a 30-second promo, and maybe that's a sign that those types of clients are red flags and I should avoid them for the most part. But
yeah, so this is what I'm hearing. It sounds like the client came to you for a specific need, like a deliverable, the one that we saw at the top.
Yes.
And that in the engagement, they saw you, I'm hearing, as an order taker. So
Yes.
they did not want those questions because they're like, we already know what we want. We've already diagnosed this. Just do it. And you only need what you need. Don't ask me any more questions. So it sounds like a positioning thing too. And are you asking about the sales call?
I'm asking about the sales call. Yes.
Yeah. So we will definitely go over that in depth on week 5. Because by the time they get into the actual workshop, they're prepared that you're going to be asking them a ton of questions and they're okay with it. So it sounds like there was it's a positioning problem really that we'll fix when we get to week 5 for you, so that you won't be told that. And if you are, then you'll be able to spot that those aren't the clients that you need.
Sure.
Yeah. Good question though. Yeah. Grant, I saw a question. I can probably answer two questions, and then anything else, please save your question and bring them to the Q&A. But I can answer 2 more here before we go. But Grant, do you want to hop on? You have one about budgets. It might be something we might need to address later, but do you want to ask it really quick?
Yeah, I was just sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Just curious, when you're doing the extrapolating all those ideas, is there a point where you've had a budget conversation where the client doesn't have that much money to work with, and you're coming up with these great ideas? Is there pushback at this point? Because that's kind of the ultimate expression of the brand. Coming to the end there. Have you had a budget conversation before the workshop, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So typically, and I'm working on this too. Grant, I'm just going to mute you because you have some background noise. So we do have a budget conversation. We might not nail it down at 100%. We have the budget conversation in the sales call. So usually I come in with a hard number for the strategy session, and I say, connecting with your ideal client, this could look completely different, but let's talk about ranges that you want to invest in. Let's talk about your goal. What is that goal worth? What makes sense for you to invest in that goal? So we're having more of the value-based pricing conversation. So that goes back to Blair Enns, pricing creativity. So they have an idea of what their goal is worth. So they know if they really want to get to that goal, they're going to have to invest this certain amount-ish of money. Now, it might not all be with me, but to get this going and to get to their goal, they need to think about investing this much. So we already do have usually a rough range of what they're willing to invest in. Then if they end up coming to all these initiatives and say, oh my gosh, it's so much, but I want to invest in it, but I just can't, we then prioritize, okay, what makes sense? What do you have to do right now to get to the next phase so that you can start investing more towards your goal? So we then chunk it down and break it down so that they can actually move closer and closer to their goal. And they're usually very understanding of that because they're like, okay, we get it. You don't have the cash to do that right now, but what can we do to get ourselves in a position to have more so that we can invest more? And we look at ways that we can skimp on things, or maybe they can do things in-house, or they don't have to really do this other initiative. Like it's a nice thing, but let's cut it out. If they're good business people, they understand that thing, and because they're not as emotionally attached to their money. But if they are, then they're going to hurt. It will hurt them every time that they see something come out of their wallet. So yeah, but we can talk about budgets more. I'm making notes too for the last call, the how to sell. I can take one more quick question. The rest we'll save for the Q&A. Anything that you're just super confused at, because I know that I gave a lot of info.
I'm going to jump on really quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Condense it, because in my head, it's the question I'm trying to get at is a bit muddled, but this isn't kind of related to what we've just been through, so I understand if you want to leave it for the Q&A. But usually when I do the strategy workshops, not as well as you just ran through it, admittedly, but I try and work with the client following that. So obviously the identity design, the web design and build. And I'm finding that people are kind of making up their own, they kind of obviously people have their own value for each service. So recently, I'll try and put it into an example. I sent out a proposal and he came back to me and said, I feel like you've sold yourself short on creativity. So the web design and build piece was more in relation to the branding piece. So when we are offering the strategy and we're trying to up our prices for the strategy, what we're trying to do now, does that mean that our other services that we offer and that we have skills in, do they need to up as well? If that makes sense.
Yeah, as you raise your price with strategy, I would also raise your prices with everything in relation to that. Pricing deliverables is always a weird thing. I have actually been told too before that someone said, why are the deliverables more than strategy? I feel like we did all the work in strategy. And then it told me, I got to up my price for strategy. So you're going to find a balance, and you might have to just trial and error it for a little while, and you'll start seeing what makes more sense as you do it, and you get feedback from clients and see this was actually worth way more than I thought it was to my client. And we have to base our pricing off of the value that it gives to the client, or the value that they perceive it as, right? Because that's how pricing works. The person who's paying decides what the value is. Now, that doesn't mean that we should shortchange our deliverables because of that, because we actually have to make a minimum, obviously. But yes, as you up your price for strategy, be upping your price for deliverables too. And you're going to find that sweet spot where what makes sense to be more, because really strategy, the more and more that you can prove the ROI of strategy by your testimonials and your results, the more that you can show like the value of it, right? So yeah, but I don't know if that completely answers your question though, does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The question seemed really simple when you repeat it, so yeah.
That's fine. Let me just go over, Lena, did you have a question you want to jump on really quick? Or do you want to wait? I'm not reading the whole thing in the chat. Oh, what next steps? Okay, so for guidance for next steps, so I'm glad let's end with this question. I'm going to be uploading this recording. If you guys want to go back on it, you can look at it as much as you want. It's going to be an unlisted video on YouTube, so feel free to just look at it, repeat it, whenever you need to go back to it. I will also be uploading the template that I showed you. If I'm able to upload any client examples, I will. I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that. I don't mind sharing the roadmaps though. So you can just like screenshot from this call, but I'll be uploading the Keynote template. I'll be working on a PowerPoint template for you. So I'm sorry if you guys use PowerPoint, it'll come later. I don't know when. I might have to get some help for that. I will be also uploading a PDF for you as a template. So if you just need that to look at too, because you can, make your own. I hope you do make your own. And then I am making a list of like prompting questions and things like that. So as I develop those assignments, as I develop those worksheets, I will be uploading them to the Facebook group. So for next steps, what I want you to do, actually, I'm really glad she asked that, because I do have an assignment I wanted to show you guys. Here's your assignment. Oh, good thing she asked that. Okay, we do have an assignment for you. You're going to facilitate a workshop. So if you haven't found a partner, find a partner. You're going to take the template and you're going to take turns. So you're going to be a facilitator, but you're also going to be the client. And you're going to do strategy for each other's business. So you don't have to make up a business. This is for your design or strategy business that you currently have, because you know about it. and you know who you want to target. And this will actually really help in your own positioning and your own client experience. So do this. If you have 3 people, that works too. Just trade off being a facilitator and being a client. And done is better than perfect. If you have never done this before and you feel really uncomfortable, it's fine. It's probably going to suck the first time. It's probably going to suck the first 5 times. What's funny is you go in thinking that, and then you actually do it and you do a really good job. So you'll be totally fine. So done is better than perfect. You're going to screw up. You're going to not know what you're doing. It's totally fine. But be a facilitator, be a client. Make note of your questions and roadblocks. If you're trying something and you're like, I don't know what to ask here, make note of it, because we can talk about it in the Q&As. And then ask your questions, bring your questions to the Q&A. So if you're able to facilitate a workshop before the Q&A, that's awesome. I understand that might not happen. So if you need to ask these questions in a later Q&A, like next week or the week after, that's fine too. If we have to ask those, that's fine. I just want to make sure that you're getting what you need from here, that you feel confident enough to facilitate this with a client outside of here. As the facilitator, ask yourself, how did it feel to run a session? So where did you feel really nervous? Where did you not know what to ask? Where are those roadblocks? I want to know about them. As the client, when you're in the client seat, how did you feel during the strategy process? Like one time I got really uncomfortable when they were asking me certain questions, and I was like, why do I feel really uncomfortable? But it's good that you're aware of it, because then you know that your clients might also feel uncomfortable. And that it's always good to know what it feels like to be a client. So make note of, I talk about feelings a lot. So make note of your feelings, what you're feeling. Do you feel understood? When do you feel understood? When do you not feel understood? That happened a lot to me too. When a couple friends did strategy for me, there were times where I'm like, God, I feel like you don't understand me. You're not asking the right questions. And hopefully if you guys get comfortable enough with each other, you can tell them that. Be like, you know what? I don't feel like you asked the right questions here. I don't feel like you understood me. Hopefully over time, you guys will get comfortable with each other. I know that I kind of just threw you in the deep end with each other, but that's how it is with clients too, I guess, right? So you have to learn how to build rapport and trust really fast. What better way than to do it in a safe space like this? Don't overthink anything. I'm going to tell this to you over and over and over and over. Do not overthink. Just do it. Just do it. That's all. You will get so good the more that you do this. So now that's like the real next step, is facilitate a workshop. Find a partner, facilitate the workshop, and do not overthink this. We will synthesize everything. We will create a roadmap later. Don't worry about that. All I need you to do right now is fill out that template, which I will be uploading as soon as I can. So I'm going to upload the keynote and the PDF right away. You'll get the replay of this later, so you can start as soon as you possibly can. Questions about the assignment? I'm so sorry I went so over today, but it's a beta, so whatever. Any other questions? Oh, 4 to 6 hours with your partner. You might. You break it up though. If you have to break it up into like different times, you're also learning with this person, so it's going to take longer than it would naturally with like another client. So you guys can decide if you want to cut it really short. You can rush through it. You're going to know as you start going through it, like, do you need more time? Do you not? If you want to space this out over the next couple weeks, just know that you might be running behind with the roadmap. So maybe over the course of this week and next week, you can figure out how to fit this in. What parts are essential to the workshop? Yeah, because doing it both sides, I know. Yeah, it will take forever. Essential. I'm not going to tell you. I say you're going to figure it out. So I would let you guys decide what you feel is essential to get what you need to create a good enough roadmap for the person that you're talking to. I want to put a lot of empowerment in your hands. Anything else? Last question. Brand attributes are meant how the client wants to be or how he feels they are. This is all what they're going to be. So again, we're going towards the vision. So for everything, where they want to be, we really want to focus on that and create the brand of who they want to be, not really who they are, because who they are didn't work. So we don't really need to talk about that much. If we do need to talk about it, it's just to see where we're starting so we know where to go. But everything in the workshop is about who they envision themselves to be and what they need to do to get to their goals. All right. Everyone feel confident with the assignment? We're good. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your time and your good questions today. Thank you for being on video and introducing yourself. I know that can also be very nerve-wracking, so I really appreciate that, and making everyone else feel comfortable. It's also another thing that I value in groups is feeling comfortable enough to feel safe and that you're willing to share your struggles, because otherwise we're not going to learn. All right. I think we're good. All right, we're going to cut out. I will see you in the Q&As. I will see you in Facebook. If you have questions, DM me, let me know. I'll try to make things as clear and as not overwhelming as I possibly can. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, guys, I'll see you in the group. And thanks for coming. I was reading through the chats. You guys are awesome. Thanks, guys. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye.